Out in the fast lane, I understand that you've been broken too many times, but I'll be waiting to mend your wounds from all you've taken. But if we listen to each other, admit our mistakes, then I can show you who I am, because I'm not the same. I'm better with you. I'm better with you. I'm better with you. Catch me when I fall, and I'll keep you on the ground. That's when I am, that I need to spend my life here with you.
Messing with my head again. You had your heart set on me, but these feels, they come and go, and they come so easily. Tell me what it is about you that I can't forget, but you're breaking down my walls again, just to set me free. Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling? Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling?
Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome once again to HLTV Confirmed. It's been a nice few days of CS in the new challenger stage of the major. Lots of CS, lots of overtimes, lots of Counter-Strike has been played, and we already have the teams going on to the new legend stage that starts on Wednesday. In the show, we're going to be, of course, talking about what happened, what transpired in the following on the last week, and we're going to be talking about what's going to go down in the next week, in the next stage of the major. Luckily, I'm not alone in this. Once again, I'm joined by a beautiful set of people on the panel that'll be discussing these things, taking your questions, hopefully agreeing and disagreeing. In London, I have with me Professor and Striker, writers at the HLTV.org. What's up, guys? How are you guys feeling? You're in an empty Twickenham Stadium right now, I guess, because there's actually not much going on there. Maybe apart from the teams are practicing right there. How's it been so far?
It's been pretty good. Obviously, we've had a couple of long days, a few too many, I would say. But we actually ended on a high note. We actually ended the last day pretty well. So I think we're pretty happy with how it has gone so far.
Of course, you can go to our site, HLTV.org, to look at all the beautiful and great interviews that these guys are doing. I mentioned the overtimes, and there's also been delays, Prof. How are you holding up?
A bit tired, I must admit, like especially because these off days turn into not off days apparently. So yeah, it's a bit tiresome, but I guess we get a long morning of sleep tomorrow before the media day, so that it's gonna be good.
Striker, I noticed you put out a tweet about what happened when the last game yesterday actually went closed on time.
Yeah, we literally had a round of applause in the press area, just because like we finished maybe 4 to 5 hours earlier than on any of the previous 3-4 days. So that's basically what happened.
A round of applause for Face It. Apart from the three of us, we also have Ble with us, up and coming Indian CSGO talent and analyzer, straight from Bangalore, I guess, if I pronounced that correctly. What's up, Ble?
Yeah, it's going good. I was wondering what I'm going to do today with no Counter-Strike to watch, so I'm pretty happy to be here. Talk about CS at least.
So for those of you that don't know Blair, maybe you have seen him. He's been invited to more and more events recently. You saw him at the Minor, the Asian Minor, and then IEM Shanghai, and I guess also before that DreamHack Open Valencia. So getting to do more and more events coming up through the echelons of CS, and actually also breaking out a little bit of from your that Asian guy, that guys that know Asian Counter-Strike. I actually wanted to still start there. I know you're trying to break out of that a little bit, but I noticed you tweeting a lot during the Tai Lu match. So let's just get it over with. How did you feel about that?
It was kind of funny. Like Tai Lu win and people started congratulating me on Twitter. That was. I don't know what to say about that, but yeah, I was pretty especially happy because, obviously my roots would be from the Asian Counter-Strike scene, right? And to finally have a team qualifying to a major, that's a big thing, especially the main stage. I don't think Team Wolf really counts, even though they were the first Asian team, so to speak. So overall, yeah, I was pretty happy, excited for these guys, and hopefully that leads to bigger things from the region, right?
Yeah. So guys, let's get into it. I'm trying to fix the lighting on my face. I know it's my face doesn't lend itself very well to a lot of light. I'm pale as it is, so I'll try to fix it up a little bit. Remember, before we get into talking about the new challenger stage and what transpired there, let's for all you guys in the chat, please ask us questions. And Vladik69TV, please make it questions that aren't, can you please unban me from HLTV? We do not have that kind of power, even though we would like to. Anything you want to ask us about CSGO recently, the major specifically, any teams that you want us to discuss, any roster moves, anything, you can put your questions in the chat and we'll try to round them up. And I'll keep an eye on the chat when I'm not trying to fix the lighting on my face. So please, for anything that you want to ask us about, put it in there. There's one guy actually, BCKO Prof. He's asking, I have a question for the gentleman on the left. Where did he buy his shirt?
I don't know. Probably from his mom. She gave it to me like one time. He's a good friend. He's a good friend. So no like personal insults, just like friendly banter.
Top bands.
All right, I see a lot of questions already coming in. It's great, guys. Keep them coming. Some about G2. I see a lot of people want to know something about G2. Let's wait with them till we get to the preview of our Legend stage, which is coming up. You can see on the bar there. It's coming up soon. But guys, let's begin with what we saw at the new Challengers stage. Apart from overtime, I remember I was trying to watch the Rogue North game that went far, and I also was covering the Astralis NIP game, and I was like, this is more overtimes that I think I've even seen at events for a long time. So key storylines, as the bar says, guys. What do you think? What were some of the most interesting stories and events that transpired?
Where do we start? Obviously, it's North not going through. It was as Striker predicted. You kind of felt that it could happen. I think a lot of people talking about winning a big premier event just before the major, like 3-4 days before the major qualifier. Actually, that's the worst time to win it. That's what JR said last night when I was talking to him. And I also agree. Not only do all of the other teams start looking at you more in depth, a lot more in depth, but you also have the feeling that you can accomplish something and kind of, I don't know how much it is like that they're aware of it, but you probably lose a bit of motivation going into the major when you see that you beat Astralis twice, Navi, and then you go and you play, I don't know, Vega Squadron. of course you're gonna feel like this is gonna be an easier game than you would if you didn't have that result just 1 week ago. So yeah, that's a big one, definitely.
I think you were referencing Striker's predictions as we were doing the pick'ems last week, right? There was a question from chat. So what's the team to choke? Which team do you think can choke? And and that name North just kind of popped up in your head. What made you say that?
I mean, I do have a feeling I didn't back that up quite right, and now that they actually went out, I'm gonna just sound like I'm backtracking, whatever. But I mean, to be honest, it's just North have always been this team that every now and again they just do really well. Even when they were in the Dignitas days, just looking back at Epicenter, and then as far as I recall, even after winning Epicenter, I think they went out in groups like 3 times in a row. Right after that, something like that happened at that time. Obviously, this is a very, very different team. It's basically just MSL left, but that kind of identity has stayed with them, and you kind of have to look at MSL in that sense. But I mean, to kind of try to explain it and what happened to them, Prof was right in the sense that they are playing teams that they can't really do any research about, or almost any, especially when you look at Vega, who didn't play anything for like 2 months before the major, right? So, and MSL himself is a guy that's quite known for trying to understrat teams, and he even did that for Stockholm. I feel like that was a pretty big part of why North won, but that was obviously not possible for this new Challengers stage, and they lost to teams like Spirit. And I even talked to Spirit after the match, or like shortly after the match, and they were even saying that they knew literally everything that they were going to do, that North were going to do on Nuke, and they just were prepared for everything that was about to happen. So that I don't want to blame North too much, just because it's just rough sometimes playing against teams that you have absolutely no idea how they're going to play, or like you have maybe a general idea with Vega just because they've been known to have this weird play style, but you've never really experienced it, right? So going into that for the first time and just like getting off to bad starts, and that happened to them even against the Hellraisers. I think they just got off to bad starts on both maps, still took it to overtime, but Hellraisers closed it out on overpass, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just I don't want to bash North too much, just because I know that these teams can be really, really hard to face, and you just have to have really, really good basics and not just like anti-stratting teams and stuff like that. So it is what it is, but it was obviously a really big storyline.
But do you guys think that this is like a general thing, that the CIS teams are always being neglected from preparations, or because it was the same with the last major, right?
I don't think it's take it.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to touch upon that thing about the CIS teams, right? Like, sure, I don't think it's about being neglected, but like, how much could you really read up or study about Vega, right? You've hardly seen them play. I think the last LAN was like, what, 6 months back or something like that? Something mental. And then we haven't seen any games of theirs in the past 2 months. So there's really nothing much you can do. And like you touched upon, teams like North, who do rely on doing a lot of preparation for their opponents, right? They would really have nothing really much to work with. So even if you came in looking to prepare for all these CIS teams and all these unknown teams, what can you really do? And I think we're taking away too much, we're taking away too many things from Vega, because end of the day, many people might be like, hey, they're playing a little bit more crazier style of CS than we're used to, but end of the day, they still managed to qualify, right? And even Spirit, even though they went out 2-3, they did have some pretty big upsets as well. So I think it's time we stopped kind of underestimating these teams, to be honest.
I want to touch on something else about North now that we're keep mentioning them. Do you guys think that the difference in coaching rules from these tournaments have anything to say? We know that Aves plays a really big part in their tactics, and they're a very tactical team. Obviously, he has more to say, or can say more at DreamHack events, where here he can't really talk at all compared to it. Do you think that makes a difference?
I think it very well could. I'm not entirely sure whether Ave is the kind of coach that would give you a lot of input in the during the games, but it must have had some sort of an effect. Just because we even saw like some of the players arguing and stuff like that, and you feel like if Ave was able to talk during that time or whatever, like during Priest time, he would be able to calm the situation down, maybe come up with something to fix whatever is going on. So I feel like it must have had some sort of an effect. I'm not sure how much of an effect though, just because we really don't know how much of an input Avery has during games, whether he's more of the like analysis analyst coach or more like an adaptive coach, I guess you call it.
Prof, you had a point before. I think you were kind of cut off.
Yeah, it was just about more or less about the CIS teams, something what Blade touched on. It's one thing to kind of say that people underestimate them, but at the same time, you just look at their ranking, look at their like what they actually accomplished with the rosters that they have, and you can't really rate them highly. I guess similarly to what we said about complexity in the last episode, like you have nothing to go on to actually say that, oh, these are good teams. I should really put in a lot of research and prepare for these teams. Like, doesn't make sense. The only reason why you would do it is because it's a major. So obviously you really want to do well here, so you're going to put like the extra effort. But if you're going just on what they did and how good of a team they are, like they aren't really that good. They didn't show that they're that good that like a North or someone of a top 5 scale should be worried about facing them, you know. So but at the same time, even though it's a Swiss system where you can lose 2 games, still go through, it's you can really always just slip up like North did and end up losing. In the end, I don't think anyone can really say that North played terribly. All of the games, like they lost 2 games in overtime, and the third one, I don't even remember. The Vega one wasn't really convincing, but it was pretty close. So just don't slip up. Be prepared like 100% for everything that the Swiss throws at you.
Mm. What about complexity? There are plenty of people in the chat trying to make us talk about those guys who obviously also went through, but were considered, I guess, underdogs. I remember you talked to Stanislaw, their in-game leader striker, before at Media Day before things even went through, and I remember he said, "I mean, we have all the pieces to do damage. We can actually. This is not. We're serious." And they were actually sounding kind of confident. What do you make of them coming through?
I mean, from what Stan said, it was basically him kind of trying to take it slow and kind of set the expectations relatively low for this major, just because he's not been with them for that long just yet, and it is not a set of players that have been in the scene, in the top tier scene, for very long. Basically, it's just Shazam. If you look at the lineup, has been in top teams before, so it's. And Stanislaw, obviously, with Liquid even before an Optic. So it's just, I wasn't entirely surprised, to be honest. We even were talking about it in the previous episode, I think, and kind of like figuring out which team could be like the surprise, and we actually ended up going with North, partially as a joke, just because we like everybody had some sort of a stake in that team.
You mean Rogue?
Yes.
You said North. That's why.
Oh, I said North. Oh, okay. I meant North. Rogue, of course. I almost said it again for some reason. But anyway, yeah, we were talking about those two teams a little bit, and the NA minor, and it doesn't surprise me that much, just because we knew Stan was going to bring in some sort of a better structure, and we knew that they had some good players like Ye, and he delivered pretty well, and we know Shazam, so it's not a massive surprise to me.
That guy has like the best name for him.
Yeah,
his name fits him so well. If you go look, let's take a look at him, right? Let's go to HLTV and find this guy, Jacob Whittaker.
We have that good profile, right?
Yeah, that's it. And the guy is just yay. So if you can bring up, let's bring him up just to have a sense of what we're talking about here. If you can bring up my screen over here.
Need to zoom it in.
Yeah, I think you can.
Well, even this one, even this one will work, right?
Yay.
He's just yay. Plus, it was his birthday, I think, actually, the day they went through. But I mean, apart from his great name and his personality, he's also been playing well. He's one to watch.
Yeah, people have been propping him up as a like of the X factors of a sort for this team, and I think it showed. He pulled off a few nice clutches, some highlight moments. Overall, still, its complexity. We can't really overplay their result here, because it's not like they had their hardest opponents, but at the same time, it's just a major qualifier. So they beat Space Soldiers with their coach playing big and Vega Squadron in overtime, like decent results, but we can't really say that they're like improved and like a top team or anything yet. So it's exciting to see what they can bring in this next stage, and then we can go from there.
I think my favorite part about them going through, apart from the fact that we're going to see complexity at a high level again, or as high level as they are in other esports. It's just the banter from Shazam against his old team. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Obviously.
For those that aren't in the know, Stan and Shazam played in Optic with Cajun.B, Gale and Config when they were a mixed team and mixed American-Danish team, and they had their issues. Let's just say that they were actually supposedly freezing out the North Americans, and Cajun once said that if we have anything we want to share with you, we'll do it in English, because they were speaking Danish with each other, and there was like a huge controversy about that before the guys went full Danish, and they were talking about who was gonna send who packing, and the only thing Shazam tweeted when they won was just the waving emoji. So more of that, please.
I mean, it's just sad that they didn't meet each other in the last round. That would be epic, like in the best of 3 or something like that. That would be the dream, and then whoever, it's either Stan and Shazam or the 3 Danes that were in Optic before going through. That would be the dream storyline, but you can't get everything. But you can get
I just
70 overtimes.
I just love this though, to be honest. Like players like Config, like doing all these banter and whatnot. I think we really need this in the scene. And of course, you know, Shazam being someone who's not going to shy away from a little bit of trash talk. Love it. Want to see more of it.
Yeah, exactly. I love that too.
Absolutely agree. And people trash talking them like random fans because, I don't know, you say something bad, like smooya does it as well. You say you're going to beat someone and then you lose. Wow, unexpected. It happens sometimes, but at least it adds something to the game. And similar to the Navi simple liquid thing that could hopefully happen in the next stage. I'm very looking forward for that one as well. There's some not bad blood, but maybe like excitement to see that matchup.
So actually, once you, as long as you're there, as long as you're talking about smooya and what he said, just for a chance to talk about Big as well, I think we might take a look at an interview they did, Striker, with him about this after they went through. If you wanna talk a little bit about why you wanted to talk to him and what you made of the interview.
Well, we just generally, actually, it was kind of Prop's idea to do a video with him. We've obviously done literally only text interviews, and we generally kind of focused on text interviews even in the past. And for this one, Prop just went just do a video interview with him, just because we're actually going to get some sort of a reaction, some sort of emotion, and it's just was, I feel like, a classic smooya interview. Just you expect him to deliver some fire, and he did. Even like talking about, I even asked him about, well, you're going to be able to hear it, obviously, but it was just generally that idea, just to get some sort of a reaction about him getting to the top 16 and everything around it.
All right, let's go watch it.
Betting on esports with 22Bet is never first deposit and start betting on the biggest gaming events all over the world. Register now at 22Bet.
It's the Face It Major New Challenger stage, and we've got another name in the New Legend stage, and that's Big. Of course, for the rest of your teammates, this is nothing new to be in the top 16 of the major, but for you, this is different. So tell me about that, and tell me about your first really top 16 at a major, making it there.
It's actually my first ever time event attending a major, so I'm super excited with how we've done. We're nowhere near finished. This stage should have gone a lot smoother than it did. Even that game then should have gone smoother, but it's still good. Like, I'm glad we're winning the games while we're not playing as good as we can. Even on Dust 2, like, we won 14-1, but it should have been 15-0. It's like super funny to say, but it is true. So we're just gonna go back, watch all our demos, fix every mistake, and be really prepared for the next stage. And I'm really looking forward to it because I really think we can get top 8.
Right. Now tell me about the lead up to this game. Obviously there was this beef between you and Config, so tell me about that.
It's all gone now. I actually exchanged some words with him on Twitter last night. It was just bantering around saying like, yeah, we'll see, like, I'm going to send you home. And he's like, I'm going to send you home and stuff like, because obviously there was a bunch of stuff when I said that I'd beat him up and stuff like that. And I saw him and he's quite a big guy, so I ain't trying to fight him anymore. So I thought, if I make him my friend, then it's all fine. And yeah, he's actually a super funny guy, man. Like, before the Tyloo game, we were all watching him. I was stood with the whole Optics team just watching Tyloo. And we're just joking around and stuff, so they all seem like really nice guys, but there's no beef anymore. There wasn't really never beef in the beginning. He's just a huge troll like I am, and yeah, it's all fine now.
Right. Now, just to, like you said, it was just such a confident game from you guys, especially the first half. Obviously, 14-1. Are you just really confident on Dust 2 overall? Because we saw you guys at in Cologne, and you did real well on the map as well.
Just A long, man. Just rush A long.
Yeah.
That's all Dust 2 is. You just, who's got the best spawn? Give him the AWP. Alright, guys, I'm flashing. Alright, we win the round. That's all Dust 2 is. You just rush long, and then for some reason they never held short, and I was just like, F this, I'm going straight up short. No one was middle. I was like, this. It was honestly like playing a casual game. I was like, this is stupid. And every round I was like, there's gonna be someone mid. Like I'm gonna die this round. There was no one there, so I just shot the guy in the side of the head car every round. I was like, I guess I'll take it. and then we just won 41. So yeah, I don't know. It's pretty fun.
Right now, Untrained, it did get pretty scary for you guys. Literally just the last 2 rounds where you guys actually made it through. So yeah, tell me about the keys to winning that game, because it did get quite close, too close for comfort.
I don't know what was wrong with me today. Like I was super unfocused during the whole best of 3. Like even on Dust 2, I was just like, I don't know. You know when you just like feel yourself zoning out and like everything's kind of blurry, but you're still like listening. Like I had that, and I was just like, the hell's wrong? I was like this mid-round, like blinking, like what the hell's wrong with me? Like I need to get back in the game. I think that was the same for some of my teammates as well. We were just unfocused. We weren't really hitting our shots on train. That's why it was so close. If you go back and watch the demo in the first half, we should have won 14-1 again. We knew exactly what they're doing every round. And then they came out pop, and I'd kill one, and then I would just panic. Like my brain would just fart. Like I don't know. I didn't think I get enough sleep. I didn't eat anything either, so that probably didn't help. Not to make excuses. We won anyway. Who cares, guys? I'm just saying. But yeah. I'm just super happy that we won. Again, like not in a like the fashion where how we'd play in prac. Normally we just like never make a mistake ever. So I'm glad we can still win while making mistakes.
Right. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask about is, obviously this is the first major where British players have made it to the top 16. But what do you feel about Def kind of stealing your thunder and being the first one to do it?
There's no stealing thunder. I have more Twitter followers. I have more Twitch followers. People know who I am. My sticker's more expensive. If you're gonna start a competition, nah, Def's I can't even say he's a good friend of mine, because before the major, I've never even heard his voice. And when we did speak, he called me the R word on Twitter, because I was just like, I basically talked some smack about Complexity ages ago when they weren't even good. I was like, well, they're not a top, like, it was about Skadoodle going to them. I was like, why would Skadoodle join them? And he's like, I was like, they're bad. And he's like, yeah, well, shut up, you. And I was like, okay. And then we never spoke again. I spoke to him a bit at the major. I just said congratulations when he qualified. I was still super annoyed that they beat us, but it is what it is. And, I mean, yeah, I'm happy for him.
Right. Now looking at the competition in the next stage, obviously you're going to be joining some pretty big teams. So how do you feel about the competition there?
Excited, because they're the teams we prac against. So when we go from prac in G2 and we're slapping G2 in prac 28-2, and then we go to play Vega Squadron and then they run through every smoke, they don't play proper CS. Like, right. I mean, huge congrats to them, and I hope they win today. I'd be super happy if they did, but you just can't prepare for that sort of stuff. So now we're playing the teams we do prepare for, and then we have Gob to make the game plans and anti-strat them. I'm super confident.
So do you actually ironically feel kind of more comfortable playing against these guys?
Yeah, way more comfortable. Like, just knowing that, like, if I see it like a smoke, that they'll react how any other pro player should, then I'm like, okay, that sits better in my head than knowing if I throw this smoke, 4 guys might come through at any second. Like, it just plays in my head, man. I just get super nervous. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing in the next stage.
Great, thanks, man. Do you have any last words, shoutouts, or anything you want to say?
Not really. Just thanks everyone who supports me, I guess. That's it, really.
Okay, great.
Bit of fun.
Bit of fun. We're going to come back with more reviews from the Face It major. The new challenger stage is slowly coming to an end, and Big have made it through.
I love this guy. I don't know about you in the chat. Opinions about him seem to be very varied. When you think you're smart and funny, this guy's all banter and talk. I kind of like that. I don't know about you guys. Obviously, Striker, you seem to have fun.
Oh yeah. It's just like Vlad was talking about before. It's just a breath of fresh air in regards to, well, you basically hear a lot of these other players just saying, oh, this is they're like, we have friends in other teams, and it's all about friendship and whatever, something like that. It's just, it gets boring, right? So it's like hearing something like this, even though this is not even that much that bad, really, in that sense. So it's just a breath of fresh air, really.
I just think, I mean, couldn't we for some way instill more of this? I don't know if we start with ourselves trying to maybe
I don't think so.
call out some players or something. It's just fresh for me. I don't know, and I know he's really young too, so it might wane out a little bit. But I want to put a question to you actually, Blair, about that. So this guy is obviously from the UK, and he has an easy time, I guess, producing this banter because it obviously rolls right off his tongue. Is there any guy like this in the Asian scene that we might not where we might not see this? I mean, because sometimes it's hard for us to get the interviews from these guys with this level of play.
I don't think so, right? Like, the funny thing about Asian players are how, they might trash talk a lot amongst themselves in like the server and whatnot, but it's never public. Like, they would never, for example, like call someone out on Twitter, for example, or they'd probably like, try something crazy like, I don't know, like, in an interview, for example, like if you look at all the players who've interviewed so far, obviously majority of them are Chinese, the guys who actually make it out, so they don't really have an opportunity. They don't really, you have to have a translator. You don't really get the, get whatever they mean really true. But if you look at people like Benta, like Xcrit, even though they can speak English and whatnot, they're very humble, very quiet, very polite. They'll be like, thank you very much for the interview. They played well, we played well, we came out on top, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, classic.
Classic stuff. I would love to see some banter coming from the Asian scene. I do remember this though. I think it was the Tyloo guys against the, well, I don't know what the lineup was back then, but some of the VG Gaming, Flash Gaming guys, right? So when they had a pretty big rivalry like about 3-4 years back, where whenever they played against each other in LAN, they used to like stand up, like flip them off, live on camera. That was amazing. But then they kind of stopped doing that. That was sad. Zoki
Is that really, even legal in China? I guess I feel like that would kind of get you punished, maybe.
No, not really. They were doing it live. It was the Star Ladder. I forget which season. It was a Star Ladder qualifier, and Zoking, he gets like a 2-3K and just stands up and just flips off Tyloo across the stage. It was amazing. And I got to a few games where like they kill a player and it's middle of the round. The round's not done yet. It's still a 4v5. Someone might just trade you, and they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. They're going to shoot that body, finish up all the bullets, and then they'll continue with the round, which is complete, utter insanity, considering some of these games were like finals and some tournaments and whatnot, right? But they never really, did do it on interviews and whatnot, and I think it's kind of tame now. I would love to see more of that style of CS, so to speak.
Well, we talked about like Meg being kind of the PM if he shoots a body once every 3 weeks, or tries to spray the North logo. But this is much better actually. I wish they import some of that stuff when they went to. I guess they're not going to be doing it at the major, probably not. But
I doubt it. Yeah,
it'd be pretty fresh, right? And I guess it kind of also fits the play style, which is kind of fuck you already, right? I mean, I can imagine some of the Tyloo players actually thinking this. The way I look at them play. Yeah, there's probably going on inside.
You want to come?
Sorry, we just got Angel, dude. Henry's manager coming in.
I see Angel is unhappy about the ranking.
What's going on?
Angel from Hellraiser is trying to.
Yeah, he just tweeted it out, I think.
Yeah, he was unhappy about the ranking. I think he's coming in for a clarification right here, but he doesn't want to go on camera, as always, avoiding our interviews. So when he noticed that, he just when he saw the microphone, he just ran away. Classic Angel.
We can talk about those guys too, right? I know that you, Prof, especially probably had an extra heart in that Hellraiser's going through after you talked to Issa. By the way, go read that the piece from the Middle East article we did. I love those guys. Just like Woxic and him totally losing their shit when they went through. That was great.
Yeah, I mean, I've always somehow been a fan of the Hellraiser side. I think it started as like my first international event with HLTV was the EU minor, and Hellraisers I think were the only team there that were actually speaking English. So you kind of it's easier to get in touch with them and talk to them a bit. And that was back when they had Sticko and Zero as well. And from there, it kind of rolled on. Like all of their lineups have been, I don't know, just somehow fun and different and exciting in the way they have all of these different players from different sides. And they're not like a classic top team, like maybe a FaZe or a Mousesports is, where they have, I don't want to say that they're elitist or something like that, but they're more approachable and more down to earth. And just casually fun. And with Voxic and Isa, they're like two loose cannons, definitely. But they add a bunch of excitement to the mix there.
The interview after they went through, not the one after they went through, but I think it was their third game or something, where I guess Pala was trying to make them say safe, and those it was just like awkward, but also so funny at the same time. I remember, I think it was Voxic he was trying to find the word snowball, and he did this, and I mean, we can only get more of that, in my opinion, right?
No, they just really bounce off each other really well, I feel like.
Yeah, talking about that, we also have one new counter quiz with the two of them, with Isa and Voxic, recorded, and that'll be released. We had the pre-one and device coming out today, but this one will come, I think, next week or something like that. So it'll be fun. But it was fun.
Those are some pretty hard-hitting names you have there. The double D from Astralis, I love that. And then Isa Voxic, it's going to be great. Speaking of Turks, I know there's one guy we need to talk a little bit about. For my money, a very respectable dude. I didn't know him beforehand, and I don't think anyone did coming into the major. It's Hardstyle, the coach from Space Soldiers, who obviously had to stand in for his team because Engine couldn't go. Massive respect for that guy, right? Because he was playing like shit in the first match, honestly, which is not a surprise. And then I saw a tweet from Major. I think he was practicing. He was playing at the event for 8 hours, even after the first day, because obviously his showing wasn't really good. I guess that guy deserves our respect. I think showing up to a major, and he's ranked 3 on Face It or something, right?
I'm not too sure about that. Is that right though? Like, is it because he hasn't played a lot, or is it really like a Face It rank?
A Major, I believe, said he doesn't even play for fun.
I think
he has played.
Wow.
Yeah, it says it's like Face It's rank 4 and that's a default rank. So I'm not sure. It can be a bit misleading about that, but yeah, he's definitely not an active player, and it's one of the worst situations to be thrown into. Just not like, you're in a world championship with your team there, and you have to play even though you're not a player. It's kind of disgusting to be in that role, but obviously he had nothing else to do. He had to do it. I mean,
I've also heard about some coaches not playing when they had to. I remember
some
reading
coaches?
about it. So some coaches here and there. So credit to the guy. I mean, it's not easy, right? Like, you're facing up against some of the best players in the world, and all eyes are on you. And the guy really stepped up to the plate. I think he's getting a lot of unnecessary hate. I think Major tweeted about that as well from some of the fans, and I think that's really unfortunate. I think he gave it his best. We were not expecting him to do anything crazy like top frag or anything mental like that, but he did what he had to do. Like, he was dropping the guns for his players. He was, throwing flashbangs with him, kind of doing his best to be kind of like a support player, kind of a role player, tossing in flashbangs, smokes, setting up his players, because he has Xantaros, he has Calyx, he has all these guys who can really turn things around. And honestly, like, some of these games, who was it against where they went into overtime, or was it?
It was, I think,
Renegade, I think.
Complexity, for example, right? Yeah. So even though it's technically
right.
a 4v5, the guy held his own. I personally feel, considering the guy doesn't even play for fun, that's saying something, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's just obvious that somebody like that will just not do well. Like, he's not an active player. He's not supposed to be in this position in the first place. And of course, we can always bash on the actual rule set, which doesn't allow Space Soldiers to do anything else. But like, the one thing that kind of was triggering me about this whole situation was that obviously he was getting a lot of unnecessary hate, just because, like I said, there was no way he could have done any better. Like, there was absolutely no way. He's not a player. He's not supposed to be in this situation. But I was always also just getting triggered about people on Twitter just going mad respect for Hardstyle. And of course, like, sure, respect to him for trying to actually do something in the game and stuff like that. But what else was he going to do, right? Was he not going to play? Like, sure, that has happened, like you said. But like, that's not a real option. Like, there was absolutely no other option for him. So
I was more talking about the fact that he actually went and practiced a lot after they lost their first match. I guess it's got to count for something, right? Especially since, like Bless said, there are some coaches who didn't do this. I remember when he was standing in and the info broke. I'm a pet from Energy, their coach. He was like, "That's my worst nightmare. He's living my nightmare right now. This is like the one thing I wanted the least in the whole world." And look at this guy.
It's one man's nightmare and another man's wet dream.
I mean, I'm sure some people would enjoy just jumping in and being a part of the major. It doesn't matter what, but I'm sure like hardstyle, like as we see on these pictures, he doesn't seem like he's enjoying himself at all.
He never seems happy, does he?
Yeah, that's
Ever.
also true. That sometimes he has like a smile. I've seen him smile around, but then when you get into the serious stuff, yeah, it's not gonna be no smiles there.
All right, guys. So, anything else you want to touch upon from the new challenger stage? Anything that surprised you, that convinced you of something, or anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah, just one quick thing I'd like to mention is like how right now, right, we're all talking about what era is this? Like we're talking about it's the Astralis era. Is it going to be the Astralis era? What's happening? I personally feel like this is I don't have a cool caption for it or cool phrase for it, but I think it's kind of like the Tier 2 era, so to speak, where we've said this in the past. We have teams like ENCE, we have Imperial, we had so many teams like Fraxis, for example, right? Teams we didn't expect to really perform, who've really stepped up, and now you have this other guys like Ghost. Some of the players in Ghost, in Complexity, and even on Rogue, for example, a couple of them I've never even heard of. I'll be very honest. I think unless you really follow the North American scene very well, you wouldn't know these guys. But they've shown that you can't really ignore these teams. You can't really, be like, it's all right. We can probably take them on. Because even if it's not, let's say, the Swiss system, right? I think some of these teams have the ability to upset a top 5 team, even in a best of 3, to be very honest right now. So I think this is potentially has been the most competitive era, I'd say. Not at the top level, but overall, if you look at all the top 20 teams, I think almost anyone can beat anyone.
Yeah, I think it's maybe not the top 5. I think if you take like the top 3 teams for sure, Astralis, Liquid, Navi maybe now, and you separate them from the rest. But from there on, down to the 35th, 40th team in the world are all pretty competitive. All can upset
or in Vegas' case, top 200. And I don't know.
No, they just jumped, right? Didn't they?
Yeah, 16
before
now,
that, yeah.
Yeah, they jumped 195 places, which is definitely a record and probably won't be seen ever again, unless as we see,
they stop playing again for another 4 months.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is my theory when I saw this happening. Actually, I mean, we saw Astralis skipping a few tournaments. Like their idea was like, we're gonna skip one tournament, play the next one, and they win the next one, and people started like picking up on that. Like, oh, this is maybe a good idea. And then Vega figured out like, let's just skip like 3 months of tournaments, so it'll be like 3 times better than Astralis when they skip 1 month of tournaments. And you're coming in with that. So next step is for someone to skip like 6 months, not attend anything, just practice. And we'll see like the next major champion being like a Croatian team or something like that.
And they're going to be 6 times
One can
better
only
than
hope.
Astralis, right?
I noticed that. All right, so finishing off the storylines from the new challenger stage, we need to look at something real quick. I guess it won't take long because I don't know how we did. Let's take a little bit of a look at our pick'ems. I actually didn't have the client loaded for this because we wanted it open so we can do the pick'ems for the next stage, but Valve surprisingly haven't unlocked them yet. So
I think they're busy with a more pressing issue. Right
yeah,
now.
and we'll talk about that as well. Just to quickly touch upon how we did, we had Astralis to go 3-0. That didn't happen. Then we had VP to go 0-3, which I guess for us, of course, isn't much of a surprise. But if we were to just round that off real quick, I mean, it looked dead from the get-go.
No, I mean, we had a pretty clear idea about where VP would end up. We figured it was going to be a 1-3 or a 0-3. To be honest, they actually didn't have an easy route at all. They met an IP Optic in North. So one team who went 3-0 and 2 teams who went 2-3. So they actually didn't meet anybody from like the worst or with like the worst half, the bottom half. So they could have actually won something if they met. Obviously, if they met Space Soldiers, they probably would have been favored in that game. But we just knew that team was not going to do well.
I mean, the worst thing is that, I mean, the initial idea was who we're going to pick for the O3 is going to be like Vega Spirit. And we said we're not going to do either because it's a 50-50 that one is surely going to get a win. So we ignored both and went for VP, and that went through. But the worst thing is that they weren't even the worst looking team here. It was Renegades by far, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because even though they won one game, and that was just against the Space Soldiers, so they looked so flat, and it was pretty underwhelming for me. And I don't know what you, Blay, think about it, but you also must not enjoy watching them right now.
I was watching them against Optic. I think it was a Mirage, right? And just listening to Moses and Andres cast their game, I think they pretty much channeled whatever I was feeling, which is depressing, to be honest. There were rounds on the T side of this. The pistol round was surprisingly pretty impressive, right? Some a lot of aggression coming out from them. I'm like, all right, this is still a little bit of fuel in the engine. Couple of good anti-eco rounds. The gun rounds were atrocious. Were just so bad. It's almost like they had no idea what they wanted to do. I mean, I get it, man. Like, you guys are, Bialy's leaving after the major and all that, but you wanted to see something, right? If you're gonna go out, at least go for it. Go full-fledged. Try something crazy. Go for a B rush. Just run out. Try to go for those aim deals and whatnot. There was nothing. It almost felt like just watching. You see all these documentaries nowadays, right? With like the polar ice cap melting, and you see these starved, dying polar bears in the Arctic or the Antarctic. I'm not too sure about that. It's like really depressing pictures with a tiny little ice floating in the ocean, and this bears just standing there about to die, and you get really depressed. That's what I felt, and I just. I guess I forgot who it was on Twitter who just mentioned, like, at least I'm glad it's over now. At least I'm glad that this is done. We don't have to watch them just struggle through this thing.
I accidentally stumbled upon an old Valve player profile video with Taz. I think it was from 2015, so probably for a major back then. And looking at that, him talking about how proud he was of the achievements, how far he'd come, how he was rivaling with Neo before they had realized they had to team up to be the very best. It was just a really hard for me throwback to have, because I was actually the one to wake up early to find out that Bialy was leaving the team and therefore ending the oldest standing core in the whole game, right? And I guess, but in that sense, I guess them going out 0-3 was probably not as bad. I mean, don't you think it would have been worse if they were like 2-2 and had to fight someone in overtime at the last day and then lose? I mean, maybe that's even more sad.
I'm not sure. Like, it's the same thing in the end. They went out and they'll have to go through the hell of online qualifiers and the minor and all of that. So
they're probably gonna fail there.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what roster they're gonna have for that one.
Yeah.
So it's.
Or they're gonna even pick up though. Like,
the problem is that I don't think, like I was saying about, I was saying this before, when Snatchy went over to VP, right? Like, sure, you have this obvious financial improvement when you go over to VP, but do you really favor that over potentially becoming an actually good team and doing something for the next year rather than, struggling for another year and then breaking up, which is basically what kind of the outlook of this VP has been for a while, right? So at this point, like, I don't think anybody would even want to go there.
Did he have a say though? Like, maybe Ego just sold him off. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what really happened. But...
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about that either. But it's just like, sure, like they're probably going to find somebody who's just going to jump at the money, right? But team-wise, you just got better option at this point. They're not even the best team in Poland anymore. So it's a pretty bad outlook for them.
I'm not even sure how to rank these Polish teams now. I mean, Kingwin won Montreal last night, but that just happened literally now, and they beat Argo, so it's just a whole mess. Like, Virtus Pro also had some decent results, but the way Virtus Pro got those results and have been getting them the last year is they get invited to 4 tournaments, and the 4th one, when they're like the lowest rank and they're about to get out of those rankings that they can actually get an invite still, they have one good result and then go up like for 5-10 places and then fall back down, and that is just a cycle that's repeating. At the same time, Argo doesn't really have those chances. Like, they had only won the Star Series run where they got the playoffs, and that's practically it. So even saying that Argo is a better team, I'm not sure if it's the case, or if maybe Kingwin is now going to be the better team. It's just like a complete mess of like Polish talent that is there. At least there is some talent that is there, so maybe you can find a good combination to have a top Polish team that could compete internationally for like the top 10. But at the moment, I don't see any of them as a clear favorite or the best one.
Yeah, I mean, you can just definitively say that VP are not the best one. Like, if at best they're like in a discussion between 3 teams, as
They
Prof
did
said.
get
So
invited by Epicenter, so
Oh yeah, the wild card one. At least this time they didn't invite them to the main tournament.
That's
true.
It was like an offhand. Okay, so you guys can come.
I
in
mean,
the wild card.
I also like the reasoning. Like they finished second twice. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, that was. They even made a whole video of it. Just the nail in the coffin for me was actually watching Taz's winning interview in the semifinals of Montreal yesterday. And he was going through a nice speech about bringing up new talent. How do you motivate these young players? Obviously, what he's done for so long. And then when Stunner was asking him about the old VP, he was like, I honestly can't say. I don't even care anymore. And for me, that was like, okay, this is it. It's over now. Now it's over. I mean, obviously, it was long before that, but just that was sad.
Sometimes you just need to move on. That's
exactly what we're going to do, because you know what? I have been told by our very intelligent users that this is the classic HLTV jinx, by the way. As soon as I said that Valve didn't update the pick'ems, people actually started spamming that they did unlock them.
So we can do that then.
Perfect timing.
I mean, if nothing else, then we can go look at our previous pick'ems, because that is the topic right now. So let me just find it here.
Oh, we can do that. We can do that later when we get to the End of Legends stuff.
No, now we just have it. We still need to go through our picks.
Yeah.
Are they really baiting us? I don't know.
Huh? I'm sorry.
It would be so funny that if Lars was just baited by the Twitch chat.
They're just baited. I mean, it is HLTV Twitch chat. I'm just saying, guys.
Pickens unbanned. Check client.
So
there we go.
I guess here we are. So we touched on Virtus Pro.
How many points did we get for this? I don't know how this pointing system
it's
works.
Up here. It's up here in the corner here.
Is it 13 or what is it?
That's at 6.
Oh, 6.
Yes. We got this one right. We got Liquid to go through, obviously. North we've been through. NIP also going through. Hellraisers we talked about. Big we talked about. Tyloo also. Yay, by the way, Blay. And then I think this was actually the saddest one for me, maybe because I was talking to Cadian before the major and did a portrait or an interview with him. It really felt like they had something going. I think this one was a disappointment for me. I guess complexity.
I mean, it was kind of expected that they were going to be like somewhere like a reasonable chance, but they're definitely not favored to go through, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was the loss to Spirit that they had that kind of just made them go the route that they had, and they lost to some strong teams. Astralis, North, and I don't remember and Spirit, of course, yeah. Mm-hmm. So Astralis and North, pretty strong ones. So what can you do? They had some chances. It didn't look that bad. So overall, I think I'm okay with picking them. And of course, we had to pick North. So the only thing I'm really regretting is maybe not going for Liquid instead of Astralis.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we really could have done and maybe made more sense. But 6 out of 9.
I think either was a good choice.
All right, so there is also this one. We'll do it a little bit later. A lot of people in chat are actually trying to make us do them right now, but I think we need to do like the preview of the whole thing before we actually lock in anything. We need to talk this through, I guess, because we've been. I think this was all right actually. So we need to follow this up with something.
Oh, we've done pretty all right, yeah.
So we'll come back with that later. To move on here. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Let's talk a little bit about some of the tech issues that's been going through. Obviously, some of them we know the reason for. Some of them are pretty obvious. Some of them have been tweeted about. I saw someone in chat also who wanted us to talk about the MSL tweet from last night. So, but I think it's important to differentiate between what issues we've had, because obviously the first day was very long. There was internet issues at night, which postponed the Astralis complexity match. That thing.
I already forgot that happened, honestly.
Yeah,
that was so long ago.
And you were even there. You were in the press room until 2 a.m., weren't you?
Yeah, we were there for a very long time.
So what happened was apparently they had 2 ISPs and 2 fiber lines, but the switcher between them failed, obviously. Can you guys just run me through the press room around 1:30 a.m.?
Well, we're just basically waiting. Well, towards the end of that, we already knew. It was basically said that like if it doesn't start within 20 minutes, if the internet doesn't restart within 20 minutes, we're just going to postpone it. Like we already knew that half an hour ahead of time. and we just figured that was what was gonna happen. But yeah, waiting around for like maybe a couple of hours and trying to see if anything's gonna work is, yeah, it's not too much fun.
So that's one thing, right? We had, I mean, that's pretty obvious, and Faceit already commented about that on our side, among others. But then there's been sort of small ones in between. There were a lot of peripheral issues. They changed the headsets after players came with some feedback. They actually got ones from Blast Pro Series. I noticed that.
Not from, but the same one.
Yeah, the same ones. That's the same one, right? Yeah, and then there was some keyboard things, some audio stuff, and I also and then obviously the biggest one, which is the sound bug that's been talked about. I know, Prof, that you've been looking a little bit into it. Can you explain to us what's actually it's not all matches, right?
From what I know, it's not all matches. We don't really know like how many matches were affected or anything like that. It's most likely that people didn't even notice it happening at the beginning until someone told them that it is happening, and then it kind of spreads, and then you realize it's because if some footsteps aren't heard, it's not something you can easily know, especially if it's an opponent. If it's your teammate, you can maybe notice something is wrong, but even then, maybe some players don't notice right away. I only think I'd heard about it happening on the third day or something like that. That's the first hear of there being some kind of issues with the bug, and it's kind of weird. Like people don't know when it happens, why it happens. It happens to random players, like from random players to random players. Like I don't know, I can't hear like Lars and Striker walking, but I can hear everyone else, and everyone else can hear everyone else in the server. So it's very difficult one to probably figure out what is causing it. And yeah, that's more or less it. Just people don't make any footsteps. I think they make jumping sounds and maybe one footstep. I don't know, something like that. So few people have been saying similar stuff, but it's no 100% clearness on how or what is actually happening there.
But imagine how tilting that would actually be if you're like holding some angle with your SMG and you're just waiting for people to run by, and that's your only chance to win the round, right? I mean, it's got to be frustrating as hell.
Yeah, I mean, I heard a story of like an operator holding an angle and just suddenly CZs rushing at him, but obviously he doesn't hear them. So not very a nice sight to have like 5 CZs in front of you while you didn't hear anything like for 5 seconds. So it's definitely not good to have these things happening at the major, especially. And yeah, obviously it's something regarding the special build that Valve has for the major. It's not in the normal build that people use at home.
What does that mean? What does that mean exactly? Because I saw this reference a few times. Unique build.
Well, they basically have a different version of the game because of the in-game client and stuff like that, where they have the matchmaking thing, whatever the matchmaking system is for the major.
Thing and all of that.
Yeah, exactly, with all the videos and stuff. So they basically have their own version of the game here, and that has obviously not really behaved the way that they it's supposed to. Even there were issues even with the matchmaking system itself, and some of them caused a lot of issues here. So you can't even blame Faceit for a lot of the issues that have been happening, just because a lot of it has actually been the cause of either these sound issues or the issues with the matchmaking system, where it just doesn't, where you can't create a new match, I think, until the previous finishes and stuff like that. So that just creates snowballs into more and more delays and stuff like that. So, but it was just rough to kind of start hearing about this, and we literally just kept hearing about it for the entire tournament. So it just seems like an issue that Valve just have a really hard time fixing.
Yeah. So about the tech issues, because whenever this happens, it's always interesting for us, obviously, from the outside to try and understand what's going on. Sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's easier. But this time, players have actually been pretty vocal about it. At least I saw several ones talking about the footstep bugs. But then there was this one. So let's take a look at this tweet, because I think this one really kickstarted it. Obviously, this is from someone who went out. It's from MSL. North in-game leader. He seemed to be like really pissed about it. So if you can just bring up this this tweet that he had over here. Oh, we need to change the screen. Sorry, let's do that. That's on my bed.
I mean, you can kind of, well, obviously we're going to see it in a second, but you can in one sense, you can understand the frustration, just because it's been happening for a long time. But in the second time, he might have chosen the worst timing ever, like for himself. Like I feel like he should have just waited for a couple of days or something before he calms down and stuff like that, and then there we go, and then kind of go back, look back at the tournament, the issues and stuff like that, and not just rant the second you go out of the tournament. It was something like 5 to 10 minutes after he went out. And that's just the bad timing.
So for those of you who can't read it for some reason or are listening only audio, I'm gonna just quickly read out the first one. The worst major I've ever attended, bad FPS whole tournament, bad headset first 2 rounds, can't hear footsteps of teammates and opponents, using 20 minutes in a deciding game to qualify and testing footsteps when you rely so much on sound and not sure it's working. So that's the core of his argument here, and then he says it's obviously not why we went out, it's just disappointing that it happens in a major. Of course, he has to have that little caveat here because, like you mentioned, he just went out. But isn't he right though? At least we're getting told something.
I think the biggest problem here is the fact that, firstly, the timing is quite horrendous, right? Ramis will just tweet that out immediately after getting knocked out. But here's the thing, like, if most of the issues are from Valve's side, now we're talking about FPS drops, for example, it could very well be the major build as well, right? It could be because of the version of Counter-Strike that, face it, is not forced, but which Valve basically says you have to use this version. Now, look at it from FACEIT's perspective. Like, you're FACEIT, you are hosting a tournament for Valve, for Counter-Strike, which is owned by Valve. You can't really bitch about Valve, can you? You can't really be like, oh yeah, it's Valve's fault. It's the CSGO dev's fault. It's not our problem. They can't say anything like that. So they are kind of stuck in a scenario where they really can't, say much about it. And face it, at least from the events I've seen of theirs in the past, they've been pretty open with their PR. They have a very good PR team, and they've been pretty open about the fact that when something messes up, they try to fix it and whatnot. Here, they've been uncharacteristically very quiet. And could be because Valve's involved. Could be that many of these issues, like for example, the FPS drops, the footstep sound is definitely, the version of CS:GO being used as fault. The internet going down, that's just unfortunate, right? We saw it happen in with the PGL major as well. And sometimes, no matter how well you plan, Murphy just comes and kicks you in the ass. So that's just unfortunate. So I think there's more than what we really can really gather, so to speak, from just a few tweets from some players here and there. I think FACEIT is in a pretty rough spot right now, and it's not exactly their fault.
But even so, I don't understand why they don't want to be completely transparent about the problems, because once you have players saying it, then the cat's out of the bag, right? I mean, you can understand why you wouldn't want to say anything if people don't know, or if it just looks like any other issue, or you had problems with even because they actually did say before that they had problems with Valve's client. I don't understand why then now they can't say if the same thing's still true. I mean, there was problems with what you said the first night about the build. Why can't they talk about the problems with the sound thing then? I mean, from my point of view, it's just really, really bad that you have so many thousands of viewers sitting at home not wondering what's really going on, and then you see some tweets and then still nothing.
I mean, without trying to defend FACEIT, obviously there could be a lot more transparency, but I can understand why they don't want to talk about it until they have a definitive answer as to whether it's fixed or whether it's going to be fixed or when it's going to be fixed. Like, this just seems such a complicated issue that they just don't really have that much information themselves, and they literally rely on Valve to try to communicate to them what the issue is and whether it's possible to fix. So basically, the reason for them not talking is probably the fact that they are not sure whether or when this will be fixed, or what kind of a process it is, or at what stage we are at fixing this problem.
And my point then is just to at least point that out then.
Yeah, sure.
A good old "we're working on it" would, at least that would be helpful. Like, acknowledge it's happening, say like we're doing our best to fix it. Like, when it happens, we're doing this and this to like fix it for that game for like a short period of time to at least get it restored or something like that. And that's why we have all of these delays, because we want the competitive integrity to be the best as it can be, as it looks like it can be perfect. It can be like 100% at the moment, but at least we're like doing everything, so please be patient. Something like that. Like, just hire me for your PR, FACEIT. That's it. Thank you.
You're already in the press room, man.
I'm literally. This is actually the table that some of the PR people from
I knew
FACEIT use.
that was the reason why he put on that beautiful shirt of his. This is actually one big job interview for him.
I mean, to be fair though, there have also been other issues that that do not come from Valve, and there have been quite a few of them, even though they've been kind of spread out and not as prominent as this one. Like for example, the FPS issues. But I think that was mostly on the practice servers. I'm not entirely sure whether that was, or the practice pieces. I'm not entirely sure that whether that was on the match pieces as well.
It was on the match PCs as well for the first, I think,
fair
1 or
enough.
2 days until they upgraded the PCs for some better, like
Yeah.
I think the CPUs were upgraded or something like that.
But
And
even
obviously
the headsets,
the headsets were, I don't know. That's a weird one.
Which is so weird, right? Because what Faceit said was that they're using the same setup that they use for the minors, and I don't recall any complaints from any of the players or teams about the minors. So, what really happened? I don't know. Like,
I know people complain. Actually, off the record, I think I heard that at the minor there might have been like the sound between the active players, like the teams between the teams, wasn't really isolated. So maybe I think that at the minors they actually didn't use any noise canceling headsets. So I guess that's something they added for this round of the major, and maybe obviously they didn't test them. So that's one of the issues. And for PCs, I think I only heard about practice PCs being bad. So maybe this, as you mentioned earlier, could be something related to a major update that kind of made the PCs perform worse, and so they had to upgrade them, even though they worked perfectly fine at the minors. So could be something along those lines.
That would be pretty obvious, right? Something updated, then something doesn't work. That's the classic one. Just to put it in perspective, because people have been raging about this, obviously, just as with any other tournament. But then in Dojo in the chat has a pretty good point. At the PGL major, all the streams were broken for 2 matches. And we had Sapphire streaming with the cell phone behind the scene, and everybody enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Just to put it, like I said, in perspective, this hasn't been that bad. We have to be honest with that. But it's just, for me, it's just very sad that it has to fall. The whole thing has to fall down right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's every tournament has its issues, and then it's how it's handled that matters. But at the same time, then sometimes you have a lot of issues, and then it breaks the barrier and becomes something like this event has been. Like, even all of the majors we had in the past had delays and issues and stuff like that. But if it doesn't break a certain level, no one remembers that, and everything's fine. So yeah, unlucky, I would say.
All right, so I think you see a lot of people. I mean, people have been. I want to hear your thoughts on everything that we're talking about, but people really want us to talk about the Legends stage. There was a lot of questions, and obviously also our pick'ems. For some reason, I mean, I know we're supposed to be CS:GO's experts, but don't count on us. Please do not. Please do not put your pick'ems exactly like ours just because we know a little bit about Counter-Strike. We'll get to them. We'll get to them anyway.
But you might as well do it. You just don't blame us when you do it, because it's
just send the death threats. Send some death threats along. Just send you a DMs like, I'm gonna kill you, Striker. I lost my house.
There's been talk about you guys, but I don't want to relay them to you.
I'm sorry, what?
Mostly they are about your appearances, and I won't say anything more than that.
Thank you. Appearances are important.
Yeah. Obviously, says the guy with the beautiful Oxford shirt on. Let's talk a little bit about the next. A little bit, I'm gonna say. I should say a lot, because obviously this is very interesting for us. We have the new Legend stage, and let's just look at the teams a little bit. Which teams? Obviously, the ones that we already talked about that are going through, and then if we can bring it up here. Oh, I have it on.
While we're waiting, I'll just say once again how much I hate these new naming conventions from Valve. Don't make any sense. I still don't understand what does that new part mean. Like, new legends, old legends, new challengers, returning minor challengers. Please simplify this. Doesn't make sense. Just go back, like major qualifier, whatever. Qualifying stage, main stage, playoff stage. Wow, so easy. Valve, hire me.
It sounds. You can. I mean, you have to decide who you want to work for here, I guess. I think.
I mean, we'll consider the offers, and then I go to Martin with the offers and say, like, give me a raise. I'll stay with HLTV.
I know he's watching, so Martin, please make yourself known in the chat. Is this something that's feasible or not? Anyway, so here is a beautiful site called HLTV.org that has the teams that are playing in the new Legend stage. Obviously, the format is going to be the format is going to be the same. They're going to be playing Swiss BO1 until the last round, where it's a BO3. So it's exactly the same. And then the top teams will go through to the Prof Champion stage. Doesn't it sound cool?
Great.
No.
Like
Just-
champion stage.
Champion stage. Just putting all your money
I
on,
understand the logic
Windstrike.
behind it. It's just so confusing because it's like we've just completely forgot what it was before. I mean, not we, like we obviously know what it was before, but like apparently that doesn't exist anymore. So it's just confusing now. People even like I'm talking to people about whatever the next stage or whatever, and they're like the new what is that again, and stuff like that. It's just confusing.
I mean, you can see on the Gabi reaction video if people picked up on that when he was
Oh yeah.
just on match point. They were about to win the game to go through, and it's like, let's go to the majors, major, and he was confused. He didn't know where he was going. Like, is it the major? Is he already at the major? No one knows. And the moment is ruined just because of that.
Yeah.
You live for those moments, right?
Of course.
So let's start with talking about some of the teams that we haven't touched upon in this or the last episode. Obviously, the teams that were at the top from the last Legend stage. Who do you guys? Who's the most interesting team here? Do you think coming into this?
I mean,
Windstrike,
there's
obviously.
obviously a couple.
They have a
3-0. They just
they
got
have
a
a
3-0.
They
You
have a
know
sick like a space plane, like small spaceship.
I
actually
saw
saw
a
them
guy
coming
on
in, like,
Reddit
an
who
hour
was
ago.
drawing
Oh, I saw
all
that.
yeah, he was drawing all the 24 teams that were or are at the major from memory. He had some of them correct. I don't want to say the lion from North was pretty, but it was there. And he only put for Windstrike. I don't even know what their logo looks like.
That is.
It's like a tiny. It's like a rocket or something.
Yeah, it looks like
I
a
mean,
dart or something. Yeah,
I
whatever.
think we shouldn't make fun of any CIS teams. I think that's.
I'm not making fun
Yeah.
of them. I'm pretty serious here. Waterfalls, Bobic, Quick, Jimco. I don't even know how to pronounce the other guy's name. Balbina?
Valina. It's
Valina, yeah.
It's actually like Cyrillic. So.
Okay.
Good stuff.
I mean, you know what? We've been sleeping on Spirit, we've been sleeping on Vega, and now Windstrike's there. You know what? I'm not even memeing at this point, right? I think they're going to be a surprise package here.
The thing is with Spirit, they were, I think they were 31st or something like that, about between 30 and 35th.
Yep.
Coming, actually, I think they were 36th, so it doesn't matter. But coming into the major, we knew that they were playing some games. They weren't like extremely good, but they could beat some teams. They made some like close qualifiers, stuff like that. Vega, we didn't see for like 3 months, so we didn't know what was going on there. But for Windstrike, they actually have been playing since the last major. They've just been like not winning and not going through anything that no one really cares about them. No one sees them play anymore.
Obviously hiding strats for the major.
But they're obviously not hiding.
Obviously.
Just like they're playing these low tier cups and still losing. So just because of that, I'm still confident saying that they won't be great at this event. But they'll still get that one win, so they don't have to go back to the minors. I feel like it's just gonna happen for sure.
So over who is that? Do you think?
It doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter.
Vega Squadron.
That'll be spicy.
Yeah, it's matchup. Just random.
It's gonna be like Astralis or something.
Yeah. That's, I mean, like, you're asking about interesting teams. Like, take your pick. You got FaZe. I mean, out of the teams that are coming in now, you got FaZe, Navi, and Mousesports from the top. Well, now top 6. FaZe actually went out of the top 5 now. But FaZe, Mousesports, Navi, obviously being the biggest names out of that 8 that are coming in. But even MIBR have been showing some promise. And you got teams like Fnatic, G2, Cloud9, teams that we've been seeing. I mean, not G2 too much because they've got a new lineup, but still, all of these teams. Now we're actually getting into these teams that we do see a lot of the time. Compared to the previous stage where we did have maybe half the teams that we don't really know that much about.
Yeah, I mean, for me, G2, even though I'm not a fan of the roster, like I'm not a fan of this combination of players in 2018. I think it just won't work. At least that was my initial impression when I saw it come together. And I didn't really care about them that much at the beginning. I just didn't think they would just suddenly click and be good. But now I'm actually curious to see like what they can bring. They had a bunch of like I think Kenny's was playing pretty poorly at the start, so maybe if he's in form, then everything else can be good for this team. Like, but that's the most basic thing.
To be honest, right? Like if you look at, I'm sorry, you're saying?
No, go ahead, Brian.
No, I was just saying, like, if you look at the new legends right here, most of them are pretty underwhelming, right? All memes aside, Winstrike, like we said, we've seen them play. They haven't really done anything crazy. Mouse Sports, ever since the addition of Snacks, I'll be honest, I still think they look better with Stico. The addition of Snacks, with the added firepower and all that, I don't think they've really, stepped up their game, so to speak. They seem like they're pretty much the same old Mouse Sports, even shakier than before, if you ask me honestly. The only exciting prospects I see here would be MIBR, obviously. Then we have FaZe and Na'Vi, right? Na'Vi, who've also not looked the sharpest, looked a little shaky, at least in the recent tournaments. If you look at the rest, Cloud9, Fnatic, G2, Winstrike, and even Mouse Sports, like I mentioned, I mean, these are teams who don't look like they're the best right now. All these other teams who are coming into the new legend stage, like Liquid, like NIP, like Astralis, obviously, and even the likes of Hellraisers, even the likes of Vega or Big, they seem like on a peak, so to speak, right? They seem to be in a better form than all these teams I mentioned right now. I don't know what do you guys think about this, but yeah.
Something that I had in mind when I was doing my betting slip for later on also was that we saw it at the last major as well. These teams that were in the first stage of the major and played, especially teams like that played 5 maps, played every day, they are definitely going to be in better shape than teams that like Cloud9 that just popped up after a 4-month, like a 2-month break almost. So I expect, especially Astralis, NIP, Liquid, teams that are already good and have been playing a bit more, to have that initial, at least for the couple of first days, to have that edge over the other teams that are coming in to the major just now. So I think that could definitely be a factor.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like Blaze said, there's a bunch of teams that just haven't been up to par with, especially like with some of the previous rosters. Just look at Cloud9. That's I guess the biggest example in that case. Cloud9 just haven't looked at all like a team that won a major, obviously. But of course, that was even before this lineup. But then same thing with Winstrike. Last major, they obviously were a huge surprise, and now they have been really looking underwhelming. So this is just like a combination of these of some of these up and comers that actually went through the new challenger stage. See, even I'm getting a little bit confused, even though I've been using it for the past week constantly, all the time. But yeah, we just getting these two kind of types of teams meshed together, and obviously we have teams like Liquid, Astralis who were just favored and basically screwed up at the last major, or didn't even screw up in Liquid's case because they were playing with Zeus. So it's just we're getting to the stage where everybody has a stake, right?
Yeah, I really don't know what to make of this Cloud9 team. Seems so out of place. Like the combination doesn't make any sense in a way.
Just look at this lineup here. I think just checking that out looks pretty weird, right?
I mean, the first obvious thing you have to look at is the lack of firepower, right?
Yep, and it showed from what we saw from them, and of course at the same time they played maybe for a month total before the break. Wasn't a lot of time to get anything done, and maybe now Golden has had more time to kind of make it work. But it is just a lack of firepower. Obviously, they can maybe have a different game style now than they had before with S2E and Tarek, who are more of a fast-paced players and stuff like that. Maybe they can slow it down, and that's something like from what I know is more up Automatic's alley, and maybe he can be like the big star player of this team, like heavy star player, even though he was, I think, for the last 2 years probably, when you take it all into account, probably the best player of this side. But still, with the rest of the team, it's just Kadoodle, who he just has these off periods, more off periods than on periods. Stico has been in Mouse just a mega support player that hasn't been putting on big numbers, and Rush, who is kind of okay, and Golden is also a low fragging, maybe in a very low, like if you have like 5 tiers of fragging in-game leaders, I'd probably put him in the bottom 2. So all of that together just spells trouble for this Cloud9 team.
Do you guys think, I was talking to FNS at ECS in June, where he'd just been kicked from the team after what was it, a couple of weeks? Like I think he put out, they didn't give me more than a couple of weeks to do this. I know that there has been changes after that, but do you guys think that he could have built something that's better than this, what we're seeing now at the major, if they'd given him a chance?
I mean, essentially, what's the big difference between Golden and FNS? I feel like it's pretty similar, and the only difference is that they don't have Tarek now, so it's kind of a different team. So maybe now Golden fits, and I think FNS could have also fit if he got the time. I don't know. Seems pretty weird to me.
Yeah, I want to put there's a question here that's been posted a few times that I really want to ask you guys about, that I really want to have in here. It seems like the Legend stage is pretty stacked towards Europe. Do you think this should be a point when you're dealing out minor spots?
I agree. I actually agree. I've actually had this idea when it comes to the minor qualifiers taking place, right? Like they should be. I remember this thing where basically instead of allocating slots purely based on region, you should kind of have a few more slots for EU, and then everyone kind of plays together like we have the new challenges stage, something of that nature, but without the previous old legends, new legends. I don't even know what they're called anymore, but basically only the teams who qualify from the minors should play in like a pre-tournament, so to speak, and then from that we decide who goes through. And I do agree, I think we should have more slots allocated for EU, to be very honest. Not saying take away anything from the CIS region, keep those 2 slots, keep the 2 slots for Renegades and Tyloo. Oh wait, only Renegades now. And then of course
not still confirmed.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Yes, I look. Don't jinx this for me, all right? But
you shouldn't jinx it for yourself.
Yeah, I kind of did. But anyway, a couple of teams a couple of slots for NA, maybe 3 slots for including South America, a few more extra slots for EU, and then if the CIS teams, if the Asian teams, if the North American, South American teams are good enough, they will qualify to the next stage, and I think that's reasonable. We want to see the best teams in the world play, and the actual fact of the matter is the majority of them are based in EU. So I'm actually okay with that idea.
Yeah, I think there's also the concept. I mean, not the concept. When you look back to the first major qualifiers and how they functioned, like teams that were there, mostly you knew like a couple of teams, and mostly they were really raw teams, like unexperienced at all. Like my first memory from one of the major qualifiers was the Peter team. That was like I think it was Waterfalls and the Finnish Russian guy, which I can't remember his name right now, and a lot of these players that no one knew about, and it was just like breaking out. And I guess with what you're saying, to have like a tournament that's like a post minor or something like that combines all of the minors, that would bring more new talent and stuff like that, because current major qualifier doesn't feel like we are discovering a lot of new talent. Like 80% of these players are fairly well known.
I mean, it's supposed to be the minors, right, where you discover the teams or the new players or whatever, but not even that. That is no longer the case. Just look at the teams that are doing that are going to the minor, or like that were at the last minor. We didn't really have anybody new in that constellation of teams. Just look at, I'm not sure which major this was, but just look at the minor which had Pixel Fire and then DD. Like those teams at the time were not considered anywhere near the top tier. So
I mean, they're essentially mixed teams, not even teams.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like that was basically the initial idea of the minors, right? That they were supposed to be the grassroots type thing, where we would have the new talents, new kind of team, new kind of lineups. But that's with how many opportunities these teams already get. I feel like that system should be rethought a little bit, because that's no longer the case. That that's not even a grassroots tournament.
All right, so Simpu Taya posted that question. Thanks for that, and he says thank you for answering my question about the minor slots. We also have Loba in the chat right now, actually. Hey Loba, what's up? He has a message for you, Prof. I'm not sure if I should be reading this out. I think you'll take.
I think it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So let's looking at the chat as well. Loba says, "Professor looks like a dog," and then a heart. Loba, please don't be jealous, bro. But just because we have a better talk show than you, man.
A lot of girls like dogs, so I guess that's
true.
Plus.
That's true.
So what kind of a dog is it then? I mean, you can answer that, Loba. You can actually join in on this conversation about the new Legend state. That's on you.
Huh? What was that?
I just put to Lo whether he can answer that question about which doc he's talking about, or he can actually join in on the civil discourse we're having about the new legend state. It's up to him.
Okay. Maybe we can just move on to the next team then.
We
That works.
let's not rest on this guy. Don't ask me those things, he said. Okay, so Predacon has a more serious question. He asks, who are you underrated? This is such a HLTV way of spelling it. Who are you underrated or dark horse teams to have a great showing? Who are your underrated or dark horse teams to have a great showing? Blair, we're going to be talking about Tyloo now, because actually that's I would answer them. I'm not sure if we can actually make it very far, but just like they are the dark horse for me, just because I've fallen in love with them, their play style, their personalities within, at least within the play, within the server. What do you think? Putting all bias aside, do you think they stand a chance?
I really don't think they're going to make it to the playoffs, to be honest. But I do agree with you that they are a team whoever's going to be facing off against them, MIBR, Cloud9, FaZe, Fnatic, doesn't really matter. They should be wary of them, right? Firstly, the very famous. Firstly, I was really surprised Spirit allowed Mirage through, by the way. And and that's a mistake no one should make against Tyloo. I think they've proven time and time again that they are potentially world beaters on that map, right? They took on Astralis as well recently on that map in Stockholm. So here's the thing.
Well, that didn't end up mattering, but still, you're right.
Yeah, true. I mean, they did completely get dismantled in the next two maps, but here's the thing with Tyloo, right? They have a couple of things really working for them. They have individually very gifted players. Bent and Extra, we already know about them. I think DD and Captain Mo fill in certain roles. They're very selfless players, so to speak. You see Captain Mo going in first many a times, setting up his star plays, and then somebody has just come into his own in the recent couple of events, right? He's been just phenomenal, just going for individual plays and all that. So the individual talent is there in this team. They can go toe-to-toe against the best in the world out there. They have strats as well. They have some pretty cool setups and whatnot. One thing I think I saw this on Twitter as well, someone pointed it out, was how when they played against Optic, they weren't playing inside the B bomb side where Optic really like going for this Molotov, executes as heavy side executes, and then storming the site. So instead they played outside the site towards Coffins, actually playing right at the entrance of the B bomb side towards City Spawn, for example. So they do their homework. They have some pretty cool strats here and there, but what they really lack in is the fact that they don't seem to. Again, comes out of comms, right? They don't have the comms. They don't really have great mid-round calling. They don't seem to have any mid-round calling, for crying out loud, right? They have so many flaws going for them, but yet I always feel like they're going to plateau out. They're going to reach a point where they cannot get better than this because of these communication problems they have. But they've surprised everyone time and time again, tournament after tournament. So I think they really need to be anyone facing it against them have to be a little wary of them. Because one thing I saw from Tyloo, which I really liked this time around, they were not playing like pussies. There were a few games where they were like just going balls out, just taking the fight to them, going old school Asian style, where they were just like taking the fights, not really giving too much of respect to their opponents, and I think that's a very dangerous Tyloo to face off against.
What do you guys make of them? Do you guys agree, or do you think they have a chance?
I don't think they have a chance. No, I have to agree with that. But the one thing that I was a little bit disappointed with Tyloo, or that you can kind of tell that they have a really big issue with, is basically their adaptation. And that, like Blair said, that just comes down to their comms. I feel like that must be the biggest reason. But they just have a Bentet as somebody who is not really used to in-game leading against these type of teams, especially. He's just having trouble adapting to the game. And even like talking to him, he agreed that he had some issues against some of these teams. I don't remember which one he actually talked about, but it was just generally they have a very hard time adapting. And there's like, you can tell that they're starting to want to play like European teams, but it's clearly not fitting them as much as they would want to. It's just going to take them a long time before they can make that some kind of a transition like that. So you can tell that they are just not entirely in their comfort zone with these super slow rounds. We could see it on the T side of Inferno, something like 6-7 overtimes that they played over the games against Optic and Spirit, was it? So you can just tell. Yeah, Optic and Spirit was that.
And Spirit
they played against Spirit as well. Yeah, at the end, that was like a triple overtime game as well. And they suddenly, of course, at the end they got 3 rounds on the T side somehow. But anyway, that you could just tell that on Inferno especially, they had such big issues on the T side, and they were actually trying to play super slow, but it just didn't work out for them. They just didn't do those super crazy strats or go into something fast after they got 3 rounds on the CG side and surprise their opponents. We just didn't see any of that. And that was a lot of the reason why they just couldn't do anything on the T sides.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the fact the way they play is that like surprise your opponent style, and after when you go into the overtime, when you played like one half of the T side, and you surprise them like 6 times in the 6 gun rounds that you won, and then you won like 3 more anti-ecos or something, doesn't matter. You don't really have that much left to surprise anyone with. I mean, they really know more or less what you're gonna do. So at that point, when you go into the overtimes, is especially where you're gonna struggle as a like an in-game leader, especially as a team that can't really even communicate to one another what is happening. Like if Bientet or Xrate aren't on one part of the map when they can like communicate fairly well, then you Bientet can't get the same information from DD or somebody, or I always crack a smile to that one, or Captain Mo. So that way they have to play like defaultish style, like random style. Yeah, I was actually standing behind them during one of these overtimes, and Bientet was just there was a freeze time, and he was looking left and right, and like I have no ideas left. Like what are we gonna do? And they came up with something. I don't know, won it in the end, but yeah, it was, or maybe that was the Optic game even that they lost.
We've heard sometimes, Prof, that he actually communicates in 3 languages. So Indonesian for Xrate, English for I guess one of the Chinese guys, and then Chinese for Mandarin for the last one. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, he does that actually.
I mean, I honestly can't understand like I don't understand anything. Even his like the comms in English are pretty weird, so I'm not sure if that is English or not. So it's just like one big blob.
Yeah,
I can't
exactly.
understand
It's just
anything.
like it's a one massive blob of languages that you just don't understand anyway.
No,
just to add to that. Yeah, go on.
Okay, I just want to say like Xrate was trying to explain to me like the communication differences between the languages. He was like saying like for A short we use like A, and for A long it's A, or something like that. I'm like, it sounds like the same thing to me. I don't know what you're saying. And it's all on the A side, so which is great.
I think maybe that's because Mandarin is a tone language, right? They have a lot of words that are the same, that they then go up or down or long or short for them. That's probably the reason why. So my take would be that A short is A, and A long is A. Sort of like I think you can end up because the word for cow and the word for mother is the same. So there are like a lot of Chinese jokes that have foreigners trying to say mom but really say cow.
What if you're trying to like insult someone to say like his mom is a cow? You just like say it twice or something.
Exactly.
So his cow is a cow, or his mom is a mom.
It's amazing that it works anyway, right? I'd love to stand and watch those guys.
I've actually heard them calm, right? So they use they use Chinese callouts for the maps, and they use English to communicate in between. And when Xrate is alone with Benta, then they speak in Indonesian, in Bahasa, and then in between you hear Captain Mo, Didi, and somebody speaking in Chinese. And Benta just sitting in the middle, completely lost, trying to top frag, hard carry, translate, and in-game lead at the same time. The guy deserves an award, man. Like, holy shit.
When someone says like he's falling off, like his performances aren't as good as they are, like how can they be? Like literally, how can they be? This man is like using 70% of his brain on like translating and other stuff, then 20% on in-game leading, and then has 10% left to frag, and like just focus on his crosshair. That's insane.
I imagine like inside his head, it's like the meme with the calculations going around his head, but constantly. I also wondered like, so obviously they were really happy. We can go watch some pretty great photos actually from our photographers at the event from when they won. But I wanted to know what goes on when they then fight afterwards. I'd like to like hear a 5-man discussion about what went wrong in a certain round, or why didn't you do this? Is that the same then?
Or I don't know who I talked with about this. Someone said something along this line for a European team that had like bad English, but I don't know which, and I don't know who said it. But it doesn't matter. But in general, like teams that have bad communication, don't really speak the same language very well, can't really fight that much because they don't have the fluency to really get all of that stuff out, and they mostly just kind of they say a few words and then just shut up and move on with their lives.
Either that's a next level strat or it's really bad.
And it's like a positive one in general.
All right, moving on from Tyloo, I could kind of feel that you guys, even Uplay, didn't really have them as a real dark horse. So this isn't a dark horse question, but it was a question from, let's see here, Olof is Daddy. Yeah, and it's surprisingly not about FaZe. I suspect this guy had his Twitch name made up a few years ago because he wants to get our thoughts on Fnatic. What do we think about them coming into the next stage?
I'm actually not sure, honestly. I actually don't know, because we saw them at in Stockholm, right? And they went out 0-2, and God knows how much they've been able to fix since then, right? So they don't instill too much confidence in me, to be honest.
If I'm just looking at the roster, I like it. At the same time, I don't like it. It just comes down to Draken, in my opinion, and the reason why he was kind of removed from NIP was just his inconsistency, and not inconsistency that much in terms of putting up the numbers, because I think his numbers in NIP were pretty good, potentially even the best, even the best, but relying on an AWPer to get the shots is what you have to do when you're setting up, especially on the CT side. And he was the guy that just the meme was too strong. Like I nowadays, like people have different memes about players, but this one is just so on point that it doesn't make sense that he can be so on point, but he misses too many easy shots and puts his team in a pretty rough situation too often. And if that doesn't get fixed, I think it's going to be hard for them to be like a successful team with him. Other pieces I think are fine on that team.
Remember, thanks for that, Olaf S. Daddy, for your question. Remember, you can always ask questions, especially about the preview here for the next Legends stage. Do you guys think we wrapped it up all good? Any more teams you want to talk about? I know some of them were actually practicing boot camping together at Refresh's offices in Copenhagen.
MIBR, Cloud9, and FaZe.
Yeah,
I think
there were a lot of I don't want to say disappointed people, but people were kind of. There was Refresh, one of the Refresh guys tweeted out a picture of MIBR and Cloud9 having lunch together, and people were like, "No, you guys are supposed to hate each other. This is supposed to be a rivalry. What's wrong with this? I want my anime storyline to be complete here. What's up with that?" But I don't know why people would think that they couldn't talk to each other. Right?
I think there's still enough bad blood between Cloud9 and MIBR, even though they had lunch together.
Probably. That's probably. I mean, it's bound to be a little bit awkward, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not even like 5% worried about there not being bad blood if the. I mean, yeah, bad blood in a way between the two if they meet each other in the group stage.
All right, so a team that was also present in Copenhagen was FaZe, and a lot of people are tagging us to be talking about this. Discuss FaZe, please. FaZe, HLTV. I guess this means we should talk about them. I don't really know what to say about those guys. I mean, this obviously missed out on finishing the Grand Slam in Stockholm. Didn't really look that convincing to me. I think obviously it's only been a few events with Olaf back. What do you guys make of them?
I think they're favorites here, right?
I'm sorry?
I think they're favorites, definitely.
Seriously?
Okay, yeah. I wouldn't
think so.
Please expand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you please?
I'm really curious about this. Why do you think so?
I think the favorites because if you look at Astralis, right? Like right now, they would obviously be the favorites. I think they're favorites for many people. But ever since the play breaks happened, and they've just looked very shaky. Now I'm not sure how quickly they can fix that. It's almost like I'm not talking about them getting completely outplayed, but they were, some weird plays, some miscomms, so many little things, which of course can be fixed very easily. But coming into this tournament, I don't know. I'm just not feeling the Astralis vibe. It's a very instinct-based statement I'm making here. But if you look at FaZe, for example, like everyone's been kind of performing pretty well. Sure, they didn't win the DreamHack Stockholm, but I think things were clicking overall. Like Guardian seemed to be on point. Olaf seems to be doing what he does best. Everyone seems to be kind of clicking. Of course, they seem to be kind of on an upward trajectory, so to speak, compared to many of the other teams who have kind of seemed to have plateaued, or coming after the player break, they seem to have kind of looked very, very mortal, so to speak. Teams like the of an Astralis, like other teams of that nature, like even Na'Vi, for example. So I think I wouldn't say they're the favorites, but I think they're one of a team that can definitely I wouldn't be really surprised if they pull off the win here.
I mean, they obviously do have they are a team that could win the tournament, of course, but I wouldn't definitely not go as far as to call them the main favorites. Generally, I feel like basically FaZe have lost their identity so much during the period where Olaf was out, because they played a couple of months with or a few tournaments with Exist, then they played a few tournaments with Chromend, and then they finally got Olaf back, and then they went into a break almost immediately after, right? They played A-League Premier after something like, I think I talked to the player, it was something like a few days of practice really with Olaf. And they were even burnt out then, so like basically Olaf played well, and everybody else didn't. And then they went into a 3-week-long break, and then they finally had some sort of a practice. I mean, talking to the players, they seemed pretty confident. They felt like after the player break, they had pretty good preparation. But we didn't really see that in Stockholm. We're working out too well. They lost to Mousesports, even after winning Cash 16-1 famously, really. So
it's a DreamHack curse.
I don't know what it is, but they just haven't gotten back to that level that we've seen them. And then we have some of these worrying signs in Rain, who hasn't been nearly the same player that he has been at the brink of last year and this year. While Nico was kind of, I guess that's still Nico, and Guardian can be a little bit inconsistent at this point. So I'm not confident about FaZe at this moment. We can kind of go back after the groups if they make it through, and we can see how they've changed compared to DreamHack Masters Stockholm, where they just had some weird hiccups. But so far, I'm not too confident in FaZe. I'm confident they'll make it through to the playoffs, but not about them winning the tournament.
That's also the thing, right? Like these players are talking about, like you mentioned, and very valid points indeed, right? Everyone coming back from the play break, Rain hasn't been the same. You know, everyone's trying to find what their peak, so to speak. But we are talking about Guardian, we are talking about Nico, we are talking about
Olaf, like and Rain. They have the players, and they just have that flair, you know, to kind of suddenly just go off. That's the thing. Like they could very well win the tournament. I just don't see that right now.
Yeah, and they're also a team that kind of they enjoy being in this position that they are. At least their results show so. Like when they're favored to get an event, that's when they struggle the most. Like they had some of these the worst losses ever in the finals to NIP, to Fnatic. They struggled against, I don't know, Mousesports and Belo Horizonte, who had nothing as a stand-in. And now that they're kind of out of the top 5 and they're not the main favorites for this one, maybe that's what they actually need to pull off the big one and get the first major for Nico, and who definitely deserves it on the way he played for the last 2 years. But obviously, getting the trophy is a different beast. For me, the Rain situation has been the most worrisome. Like he's been very, very off, even before the break at the E League.
It's been months since he's gone down. Right?
It's been anonymous, right?
So that's a big question mark for me. I think they need him to be like a consistent fragging force to hold those like Angry Ace site on Mirage and stuff like that, where he really is uncomfortable to deal with, I think, when he's on form at least. But yeah, that's the biggest question mark about FaZe for me is Rain and how he will look at this event.
All right, so thanks for that question for the many people who wanted us to talk about FaZe, because it wasn't really a question. So now I guess we need to move on. We have some pickups to do that were unlocked as we were talking about how they were still locked, obviously. So thanks for that, Valve. Let's move into the pick'ems again. Let's see if I can handle it this time.
This is gonna be tough.
Yeah, why?
Because I just like looking at the teams. It's just hard.
I think one team we haven't really spoken about is MIBR.
Oh yeah, not too much. That's true.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just like,
what do you think?
I think they're a team who many people have been sleeping on for a bit, right? They only lost to, ever since this line is formed and, you know, they have Yanko coaching for them, they've only lost to Astralis, one team in the world. That's about it. Apart from that, Zotac, yeah, it's Zotac, true, very, you know, weak teams, I would say, playing there, so that win. But I did like the way they won that. It went very convincing. There was never a point in which they looked like they were never in control of a game, right? They played there. And then, of course,
I'm sorry, Blay.
Yeah, no worries. And, of course, we were talking about their other performances in DreamHack in Stockholm. They showed they lost to Astralis, but they beat Mousesports pretty convincingly. They also, I think, faced off against Hellraisers. We didn't see too much from them, obviously, because they got out their groups pretty convincingly. But they lost to Astralis, but we haven't seen enough of them. And knowing how good this team's looking right now, I think they're going to be a very, very dangerous team right there. And yeah, I can see the trio there. Nice.
They were definitely showing promising signs in Stockholm. I was actually kind of considering them being able to beat Astralis. I actually had that feeling where I feel like they could actually have a realistic chance. That didn't happen, of course, but like you say, we just haven't seen them play after the break so much. We just saw a handful of games. So again, one of those teams where we should just go back after the groups and kind of reiterate and find out whether they're still kind of showing promising signs, whether they're actually looking a little bit more confident than they had before the break. But yeah, you're right. They're definitely one of the teams that are a little bit tough to predict just because of the lack of info we have on them. But definitely one of those teams that could go to the playoffs and actually make a deep run.
But would you put them at 3-0? Let's get into this. Because I feel like should we start here? Or do you
this
wanna,
is no.
you
Let's
wanna,
go 3-0.
I think it's,
yeah.
I think
Do
it's
the
easy
easy
to
ones
start
first?
with the 0-3, honestly.
Oh, okay, go for
Okay.
it. Let's go 3.
And we just go with win strike, even though I said they'll win
Yeah.
to beat someone. But
I don't like the same thing. I don't want to do the Tsayas team, but I feel like they must be the only obvious pick.
And they also start against Liquid. That's and who played through the first stage, so they warmed up. They skipped all of these events. They had like, I don't know, 2-3 days to watch all the win strike demos, which you can actually find. And I don't know. I don't think you see them beating Liquid, and that's already like the 0-1 start. And then after that, you only have 2 games to lose, and they're definitely the lowest ranked team now that Vega jumped 200 places in the ranking.
All right, so this is the
Oh yeah,
easy one
they're
then.
the obvious. They're the only
Yeah,
obvious
makes
pick.
sense.
Honestly, I would have a really hard time coming up with the second one. Like it could be, you could be looking at somebody like that's it. Like
Complexity,
I'm actually not sure.
maybe?
I guess
Yeah.
complexity could be like because of the
I like the
experience thing.
guys, great performance and everything. I love the
Yeah,
org,
I
love
guess
what they've done.
complexity would be the second
Yeah.
one, yeah. Because of experience and lack of experience against some of these top teams. Of course, they didn't, like we said, they didn't actually play the top tier, or at least win against them. They played the Straws, but they got pretty much destroyed in that first game. So, like, complexity would probably be another fairly solid choice.
I feel like
And
Winstrike should
just to remind people, this is actually about not getting invited to the new challenger stage at the next. So whoever goes 0-3, they actually will have to go through the minors, even though that hadn't been the case before.
I feel like Winstrike should just play to ruin people's pick'ems because it's got to be like 95, 99%.
I mean, they probably will anyway. I feel like they will play like that anyway. It's just
yeah. So this is what we're going with. Moving on, do you guys want to do the 3-0 team first, or do you want to go the teams?
I think we can go through the teams, and then we can pick like which one we think is the best to go 3-0.
All right, so
So where are we starting? We're starting obviously with Astralis, Liquid, FaZe, Mouse Sports, Navi,
MIBR.
MIBR. Is that all?
I mean, let's just put them down there so we can see them like in the bigger, so we can just get it.
And there's an IP.
Take for coming.
That's like 6 to 7 already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's put an IP there because I have a pretty good feeling about them. Mouse Sports.
Yeah, someone said Mouse Sports. Mouse could make it. Yeah, I really think Mouse could make it. Yeah.
It's like
I feel like
the default picks out.
That's exactly. That's like the safe choices, right? That's all the safe choices that we have pretty much.
This makes sense though.
Let's find out. Like these are one of these is what we're gonna pick for the 3-0. So and then we can figure out if we want to change anything later on.
You know what?
What
about Big though? What about Big though? Before we like go for the 3-0, think about it. Like,
I think they have I think I'd put them out of everybody else. I think I'd actually put them there.
I'd say like Big and Hellraisers are the two.
Basically, I just replaced
instead of Nip or Mouse Sports.
There's also G2 that we didn't keep in.
It's
hard to
remember
ignore
they're not
them
peaking yet.
Not G2, man.
I did an interview with Existence back at ECS, and what was
6
taken
months,
away from
6
that
months to a year
was that I want us to peak within the year. He said within a year. Something was lost in translation. Obviously, his English isn't that good, but considering that it's only been 4 months, so I just don't see them going through it over any of these teams, honestly. Not when it comes down to it, really. I mean, I know it's the best of ones, but yeah.
So the thing with them is that that's the same thing as well, not the same thing as MIBR, but we just haven't had too much data on them. We just haven't seen them play since Cologne.
They lost to Windigo 3 days ago.
I mean, online matches, I wouldn't.
It's Windigo's
put
killing
too much
everyone
stock
online though.
Windigo is sick. Bubble.
We're completely ignoring Vega here. I'm a little worried about that.
I mean, they are the dark horse, right? We were talking about Tyloo before. Like you were talking about Tyloo being the dark horse, but I feel like Vega are on par.
Yeah.
They're
definitely on
bigger
par
dark
because
horse.
I think
nobody.
Vega has a bigger chance to make it.
Yeah,
through
no
the
one knows
playoffs
about
here.
them.
Same. I would actually put Vega ahead of Tyloo in that, I don't know, like the surprise factor.
Also
Just
against,
because,
also over
just
Fnatic or
because.
G2.
I'm sorry.
Also over Fnatic and G2.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying like the dark
The
horse
same
type.
level.
Like, just going back to that discussion that we had earlier about Tyloo, I feel like Vega would actually be a better dark horse pick than the Tyloo, mainly because teams just haven't played them. Teams have been playing Tyloo for quite a long time now, and they know what to expect from Tyloo. They know very well what the playstyle is. They've actually experienced it themselves. While against Vega, most of the teams haven't played at least in half a year, or more, or they haven't played them at all, never. So it's just like it's one of those things. We've seen that happen in the new challenger stage where people just got so surprised, even though, like Taco said, like everybody has been saying, like they surprised us as expected, basically. And that just sums it up, right? That just sums up Vega Squadron.
Also, though, Striker, like even if you do watch the demos, even if you like, try to analyze what they're doing, what do you do when JR on Cash mid smoked off? He just walks out mid and gets 2 kills. With no ball flashes, no support, nothing.
New
It's
smoke
just,
too, right?
it's just those timings,
I think
right? Like
that was against Liquid, right? When
it was against Liquid.
They're like smoking this, mollying this. Let's go like close mid control, and JR is literally
Just walks
already
out.
outside. He's
He
already
gets 2
outside.
kills, round's done, right?
Yeah.
3v5, they go for the save. How do you counter that? That is just sheer insanity. That's not even Tyloo's brand of insanity. This is just like madness, right? And they're hitting the shots, like Crusher's like getting some crazy clutches, and then you have JR, doing what he does best. I agree with you, completely agree with you. I think they're going to be a bigger dark horse here, and if you're going to see the surprise of this tournament to make it at least to the playoffs, they could be the team amongst all the other, lesser teams.
Do you guys want to pick a team to go 3-0 and then
I think
discuss whether we do
so
Vega
we'll
or
have
Vega?
like one more spot down on the
We need it,
lower
yeah.
bar.
Sure.
And
Liquid Astralis?
This is hard.
I honestly feel Liquid for this one.
Yeah, I do too.
Let's go Liquid. Let's go with Liquid, yeah.
Let's go Liquid.
They might just win the majors, right? So,
They have the coolest sticker anyway. So
I love that.
It makes sense to put that in the best possible place.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about Liquid in this one.
Because
like we have Astralis. The thing is, we have Astralis and Navi in the first match.
Yeah.
So that's like the 150-50 that you just have to basically discard. So either of them just could go 0-1 at off the bat, really.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I'm not 100% confident in FaZe being able to go 3-0 or just being that confident. So I feel like Liquid are the best pick at this point.
From what we have now, I'd say like FaZe, Astralis, and Navi are like lock-ins. I'd say they're gonna go through for sure.
Yeah.
MIBR too for me.
And MIBR is like on the cusp, I think. And then NIP and Mouse or I don't know, anything can happen with them. Like they can. Like
Maybe
especially
also
Mouse.
boring choices though, just because the rankings and what we've seen from NIP and Mouse. I mean, maybe we exchange
just look at
those for Big
the
and
thing is
Vega.
that the threshold there is just pretty obvious. I mean, sure, you can look at not Liquid, Fnatic, and they're kind of around that threshold as well. And I would put them in that discussion as well, just like if they could make it. It's just I'm just not confident in picking them at all, right? So why would you go for anybody else? But yeah, like about the last team though.
Big.
I have a pretty good feeling about Big as well.
Yeah,
somehow.
I think they're going to be really. I mean, they've always been prepared. The only caveat with Big is next, right? Is he gonna just not show up, or is he gonna plug his mouse in and just destroy people? Right, that's the thing. But I have a good feeling about it. I think they might. I'd give them the edge over the likes of, let's say, Hellraisers or everyone else like Vega or G2.
Yeah.
I do it just to watch smooya be interviewed on stage. Honestly, guys.
In London, in the UK.
That's it.
That'll be amazing.
I feel like Big could do it just because they've got a very stable standard, or at least like a playstyle that actually can work against pretty much anybody. They can't be that easily surprised. And now, especially now that they actually don't play against these teams that they've never played against before. Yeah, sure, we still have Vega and Tyloo there, but they actually played them before, so it's not going to be a big surprise to them anymore.
You want to pick Nex and Tabsen going through over Shocks and Kenyes.
I mean, it's funny, but
that's what you're doing right now. Just think about it.
I was sure you were going to mention JR and Chopper.
That's a different, like, it's
go
hard
to
to me for
go to Prop's Twitter profile and you'll see why I'm talking about
this. I'm not feeling comfortable about this big pick, I must say. I'm not,
but I mean, who would you pick then? Tell me who you'd pick over them that you're
It's not
confident in.
G2.
It's
That's
so
the
hard.
thing, not G2, not probably
You know
not
what?
Fnatic.
But why
if
not
you had to
G2?
replace them,
Why not G2?
because
Huh?
no, because if you
Do
look at the
do you
lineup,
not think
right?
that they can't do enough to win like 3 maps in the out of 5?
Against
And it's
these
not even 3
teams,
because it's best of 3 in the last one. But never mind. You get
who
what
are
I'm
they,
saying.
I mean, they
who
surprised
are
us
they
in
facing?
Cologne. I have to give them that.
They are
I didn't expect them to go.
They're facing Hellraisers in the first game.
Okay.
HR, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that's a difficult one too, right?
I mean,
gonna
they
be a tough
can,
match.
they can easily lose that match.
They can.
Isa and Woxic, I mean, these guys are not just star players; they're so consistent. And like I said, I don't expect HR, for example, to make it to the playoffs, so to speak. But I think G2 are going to really have a rough time against them. I just don't have any confidence in the team. I would rather pick a Fnatic, man. Like Fnatic
Yeah,
somehow
that's
seems to
true.
turn up at the majors every single time.
Yep.
What do you
Mhm.
say, Jos? Who do you back in this discussion?
You know what? I put Fnatic in there just because of their history, yeah. Just because of Crims and Valhalla Flush Up.
You put them over big, or do you
And
not?
Jedi.
Maybe
it's,
like
it's Crimson all of my that attended every playoff.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
there
that's
was
true.
a Flush Up. That's Crims all, but just because
Rip
of Crims.
Cage and B, by the way.
Just think
Oh, yeah, that's
think
true.
back to Crims destroying everyone all the
Yeah.
time in
That could have happened.
in that beautiful black
JW
and
just
orange.
styling on everyone, knifing everyone in the back. You know.
Yeah.
I mean,
And-
and if we're talking about people who are funny on stage, JW instead of Smooya, that's those are actually
I like
my
That's
back-
hard.
I like your parameters. Like
Yeah.
I mean I don't like them at all. But whatever. You have your own opinions and you can pick whatever you want.
Hey, I go for flair, right? That's
I
why
think we can
I want to
maybe
put
we
Tyloo in
maybe
here,
we-
but I can sense that.
maybe we find a middle ground and go for Fnatic for
Yeah.
this one.
Do you want to
Yeah.
remove Big then? Is that what we're doing?
I'm forcing you to remove. I'm putting you in an uncomfortable position over there
I'm
on
fine
the
with
right side of this.
I'm
The
The
fine
thing
with
is, like
whatever.
now it looks like a boring set, right? We're
It
just going
really
for the
does.
safe picks.
So boring.
We're just
But
going
at the
for the
same
safe
time,
picks. That's the problem.
at the same time, I'm sure that a lot of people will be hyping up like whatever Complexity or Vega Squadron or Tyloo to go through or Hellraisers. I think Hellraisers would be a popular pick as well. But
It will
I
be, yeah.
agree with you not putting him in just because they kinda have this immaturity about them as
Yeah.
a team. I think they need to fix those
It's-
stupid mistakes
All
that
right,
are
I
going to
know
cost you.
I know it says
against
one
the
day,
teams.
11 hours, but we don't really have that. So is it that's what we're doing here? We can all
Yep.
be in.
That's
Yep.
it.
That's up.
Feels like we're pussing out, but
I think is this like the first time? I don't think it's the first time, but you know the current major champions are Cloud9, right?
Yeah.
And has this been apart from Gambit? I think it's the first time where you know, Envy as well. That is true, but it's a very rare occasion.
if you're talking about like winning the major and then they were literally
so
one
rough.
and then the next one they would last.
Shortest spell ever. But yeah, kind of unfortunate, but is what
All
it
right.
is.
So if we're
Moving
all on
on
point with this, I'll
to the last
update
one.
this. I'll put
Huh?
press the green button and update the picks, and I'll go back and put in Big and Tyloo afterwards. No problem, guys.
That's
Yeah.
All right.
It feels super like we're super pussing out, but it's just the most
It's
sensible.
logical,
It's
yeah.
just the most sensible choices, yeah.
Which is funny, right? If you look at, I saw the stats for the pick 'em ups from the earlier stage, and where the majority of people had gone for Spirit, and then I'm like, Spirit, like, have you not watched these guys play?
didn't.
Recently, they've been pretty decent. And then people went for Vega, who was a complete unknown quantity, instead of not going for VP. I don't know why so many people didn't go for VP.
Oh, yeah,
I
I
know. Peter said that. Oh, if you're,
When it
if
comes to
you're
new
a new
fans.
school fan, you know, you don't go for VP. Listen, I love these guys. I've been watching from 2006 something. I love them. Super nice guys, but they were going to go 0-3. Let's be honest.
I mean, I felt like, obviously, if they met Space Soldiers somehow, they probably would have beat them, or at least that they would have had a pretty good chance of beating them. But still, like, I mean, Space Soldiers were probably the best pick at the once you knew that the engine is not going to play. But still, like VP were probably the next best, also because Vega and Spirit were playing in the first round. It just didn't make the most sense.
All right, let's move on to more serious matters, or maybe not. But we have a little game going on. Obviously, at least the three of us from HLTV, where we go to GG.Bet. We look at some odds for the upcoming matches. Among them, I had Navi to win the whole thing from last time, and this is where we go do some slips for the next matches, and we see who makes the most money out of a certain setup time. We haven't actually discussed how long we should go, but I feel like not any of us are really gonna make any money. So.
Last time we did get everything correct, though.
Yeah. So
we got everything correct.
Just to
Well,
reiterate,
I'm not sure about you, Jos. Did you have everything right?
I had everything on the line,
okay.
but mine were actually singles. So
yeah.
I guess I still need to have Navi to win the whole thing at 4.5 to actually win. But yeah, last time we had some pretty safe, not safe. We were actually doing pretty well, I guess. We have to tally up the winnings some time or another. But let's look forward to the matches we just discussed, or at least some of the teams that we just discussed here. Remember that if you go betting, do so in a responsible way, and remember to seek help if you can feel it getting out of control. But for now, we will be continuing our GG.Bet of the week segment here. Prof, you start out. Let's see your picks for the matchups.
I'm always first. Nice, thank you. Can you just bring it up because I can be sure what I put in? Yeah, it's starting off with the win strike against Liquid. I went for the bet that win strike won't get 10 rounds. I think those are kind of decent. Like the odds are pretty decent on those. Like if someone will reach 10 rounds bets. And after that, I think it was just clear bets more or less. I went for Vega against Cloud9 because I feel like, from what I mentioned earlier, like these teams that have been here longer will gonna be like a bit more fired up and a bit more informed. And I think like Cloud9, like Vega is just the type of a team that they don't want to face with this roster that they have, which is kind of low firepower, but maybe good understanding of the game, tactical team play stuff. So Vega is just gonna, I feel like, chomp through them and be pretty uncomfortable to play against. And I think for the odds, it's pretty good. And then I went for NIP against Mossford for a similar kind of reason, that just more form-based than anything else. Tyloo to not get 10 rounds, to get 10 rounds against an MIBR, just because they actually had a lot of success against the Brazilian squads in the past. And there's that. There's their play style, like kind of, you rarely see them really just get like bashed out like 16-5 or something. So, and to end it off, I just took Astralis for 1.5 against Navi, adding on to the, like, Astralis have been playing actively during the past few days. Navi they've been probably boot camping or practicing or stuff like that, but it's not the same. And Navi haven't looked that good at Stockholm as well, so I feel like for 1.5, that's like a decent pick.
That's a pretty big combo, though. It's
pretty huge.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look at mine then. I guess I've been thinking along some of the same lines as you. I did do a little shorter one though, just to be safe, because last time I did singles and I wanted to ease into the combo thing. I had Vega to win for the same odds. I think that's a pretty. It's probably one of the best bets that are there for the initial matchups actually. This 211 isn't bad, and Vega obviously are doing really strong. Also, because you've been spamming the JR picture, just I guess it kind of influenced my.
That's an obsession, honestly. I feel like there needs to be an intervention now.
We'll talk about that next time. Next show is just going to be a whole intervention with that. Anyway, I had Winstrike to not win 10 rounds in the first map against Liquid. I didn't want to bet on this one originally because it's just such an obvious one, but I guess I feel like closing in on 2 for betting on the fact that Liquid will probably hold them a lot. So that's one for me. And then I went a little bit higher with the next one that the NIP Mouse Sports match will go pretty far. I think that's going to be a pretty close one.
I think that's a fair bet. Yeah.
So just because NIP played how many rounds of overtime in their latest match, I think we ended up with 53 or 52 or 53. So if they just double that, I think I'll be pretty happy with that. They tend to play long games. So that's mine.
I mean, mine starts out pretty much the same as you guys with Vega against Cloud9. A lot of it has already been said, but yeah, it's just I don't have a lot of confidence in this Cloud9 roster, and like Prof said, 100% agree with the playstyle thing, where Vega will just, I feel like they'll just run over them if they get off to a good start. Next up, I actually went with Mosssports against an MP with the rounds as well, just because I didn't want to touch the winner of that match, because it feels like such a 50-50, or at least close to it. that I just went for basically a 16-10 or higher scoreline, that like a closer scoreline, because I just feel like it's gonna be a close match. Navi against the Straws, I actually did go for Navi, even despite what Prof said about them not looking well at Stockholm. I just have we can't chalk it up only to Flamey not playing with them before the tournament, as was reported and as was somewhat confirmed with them not wanting to comment on what happened with Flamey ahead of the tournament. So I feel like now that they actually got in about a week, a little bit more, I think, since Stockholm and before this stage of the major, that I just feel like they're just going to get into much better shape, and they'll actually get some practice in, as opposed to what they didn't get ahead of Stockholm. And what's more, is that Astralis have actually had problems with this matchup in the past. So I just feel like now we have a really good shot, and it's much closer to a 50-50 than it would seem. So and now we obviously have the better odds, or the higher odds. So I just went for them for that reason, really. And FaZe against Big, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. FaZe just being a pretty big favorite in that. But I mean, I'm just getting flashbacks to PGL Major. I feel like I'm just getting a feeling that this is the match where it's all going to fall apart for me.
All right. Not safe at all, Professor. Already lost.
I'm not safe at all either.
Oh, you're not. You have more?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but this is not a safe bet at all. Like, I'm not confident in this at all.
And that's also the reaction from chat. Your bets are kind of good, but there are way too much matches. Too many matches on one combined bet. Not safe at all. Professor already lost.
Thanks.
So there's that. People are also asking where Blay is. Like you were so kind to write in the chat, Blay. I can't bet. I lost my house on Vega. All right, that's pretty good. We will be closing out the stream shortly. So if you have any closing questions, especially about the next stage of the major, ask them now so we can tally them up and ask some or answer some. We have a couple of days to go. It's on Wednesday that the action is actually going to take off. So I'm certainly looking forward to that. The first match is G2 Hellraisers. I mean, what a way to open that, right?
Cracker.
Yeah.
Maybe
did anyone
Cracker
bet on
assault.
that? I don't think we touched that, did we?
Nah, we avoided that one. That's a pretty dangerous match to pick, definitely.
Which match was that?
The G2 HR.
Hellraisers.
Oh yeah. No, I think I don't want to touch that. Not touching that.
All right. So this is the time for your questions, guys. I know we had a lot of ones, and if they were skipped, I'm very sorry about that. I was doing very important stuff in the client, doing the pick'ems, obviously much more important than questions from chat. So apologize if. Okay. So there was one comment. Predacon says massive disrespect for the defending major champions. I guess you probably think I don't have a chance.
Come on, look at the lineup. It's completely different too. And even though the same lineup that won the major just did not go well in the next couple of months. So it's just, come on, man, be realistic.
Yeah. All right. So Meta says, Lars, you look like Ed Sheeran. Thanks, I've heard that before. Next time I'll bring a guitar and play for you guys. I can actually play. I'll play Ed Sheeran.
He's actually playing the guitar while you're like setting everything up.
Yeah, I can actually play it. No joke. I'll bring it next time. I'll play something for you. This is by far the comment I've heard the most.
Can you play Shape of You?
I can learn it till next time. No problem. Yeah.
What are you doing with your life? Like, why are you wasting your life?
Only if you play the part of Beyonce in the duet. I'll do it.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm just gonna ignore this.
All right, Bleh, I want to thank you first of all before we close it out. Thanks so much for your time here. I know it's pretty late in India right now.
That's all right. Like I said earlier, have to fix my sleep schedule for the major, so this is completely fine compared to all the overtime games going to 5 o'clock in the morning for me. So I'm wide awake right now. I don't know what.
Isn't that much worse than that? Isn't that what some of the rounds ended at 1 local time? So that must have been what? So what is that? What's the time zone in your country?
It's GMT 5 and +5.5. It's not that bad actually.
Okay. So it's +6 compared. So you probably ended up at 7 a.m. on a few days, right?
Blay, there's a message for you here.
A couple of times,
how come you're not in the major, Blay? You were the Asian CS specialist for the major
Majors?
before.
Oh,
It
for the
was nice
minors.
to see you there.
I'm absolutely sure that Blade denied the major he was asked, but didn't
Yeah,
want to
absolutely. I was like, I'm too expensive for you guys, you know. But yeah,
Asking the big bucks.
asking the big boss, got to get the Skrilla.
Before we get out of
go. He was
here,
like, I'll go, but only if Striker and
I
Professor
think-
are with me on the desk, and they're like, no.
I think you guys need to touch
Thanks
on
for supporting me.
the Vice article that came out.
Yeah. Putting us on the spot here, Blay, huh?
Yes, of course.
I was actually trying to get that in a few times, but there wasn't really a good point. I wanted to talk about that as well, actually, because for those of you who check Reddit, you will have seen that we deleted an article that was about Vice, the Vice from Rogue. Supposedly,
Don't say the Vice. It sounds like device.
Device.
Yeah, and this
Vice.
is the funny part because no one.
Daniel Kim Vice.
Not to take anything away from him, but he's not really well known, and therefore it was pretty odd that Faceit had put him in a video where they were announcing the talent for the next stage. So what happens is, of course, that it gets spammed in our chat, and I go to write it up. Obviously, I figure he's probably an analyst, right? Just like they had Dabs there. But I think how long did it stay up, guys?
I mean, the thing
10
is,
minutes.
like, if they didn't have Daps in the first round, which is a pretty weird choice as well, especially because he's an active player and he didn't do any analysis before. Like, if that didn't happen, then Vice would be like a bigger question mark, and maybe everyone would like 6-time check everything, even though it obviously states Vice as a part of the talent. We'd still be even more like concerned and thinking like, is this real? But when you see like Daps was there, someone I wouldn't expect doing like a even just like during the regular season doing a analyst job. So that kind of makes me sense, like, okay, they're like going with this route that they're just picking up players, kind of makes sense, okay, but like why him? I don't know. But okay, sounds right.
So what was actually in the video, because it's been taken down now, was like a really well made one where Pala and
They took
Freya-
it down?
Yeah, because
Oh crap!
and this is actually what I wanted to explain is that so basically it didn't happen at all. Apparently, we were told that it wasn't true, and that he was not going to be an analyst. But the thing is that all the messages on Twitter as well that we got, or the official tweets from Bartolf actually were also deleted.
Deleted, yeah.
So
never happened.
Like
Never
never
happened.
like so apparently I guess we can say now that we can confirm that he's actually not going to be, or I don't know that maybe they're still.
You know what? It's
deliberating.
one of those things you're gonna look back, down the years, like who built the pyramids, and was Atlantis a real city, and then like was Vice an analyst? He was, but was he? So one of the great CS:GO mysteries. We're gonna be going back to this like 5-6 years down the line. I guarantee you.
So that was what happened. I think the best thing would be actually to have him come on now, to just stroll in there for the new legend stage and just
casually
wreck everyone with his analytic skills.
I haven't even heard him speak even once.
That was what I was thinking as well. Like I never heard an interview with him. I think I heard them while they were playing, so he can actually put out words in the air. He can talk, but like I was so confused with that one.
So last question, I guess we'll take before we leave us. I heard JW backbanned. Can HLTV confirm? No, we cannot confirm that JW is backbanned. Sorry to burst your bubble there.
That's sad.
Yeah, that's how it is. We're sorry about that. Anyway,
Is it Dan M? Is that Dan M?
Could be.
Dan M?
Oh, asking the question?
Yes.
I think Jos isn't updated on his
he
Dan
got
M
back
knowledge.
as well, right?
It is our friend Olof is king, actually, again.
Wasn't it all of his daddy?
Yeah,
all of his daddy?
So now it's a different.
The other one was all of his daddy, for sure.
Right. Anyway, no.
Come on,
okay,
man.
here comes the spam now. I guess we got to get out of here before it gets too bad, guys. Professor _CS on Twitter, Striker HLTV org on Twitter, and I'm Zarian. Why can't our Twitter names be the same? This is very confusing. Prof, I know you're on the hunt for more followers, so please go check out these guys on Twitter. He will be posting more news on there and also on
I think
HLTV.org.
I think the show and the news didn't really help in getting the followers, but posting the JR meme, that would really help a lot. So I'll be continuing with that
If
during
you
the
go to
next
his
2
profile
weeks.
page, don't be scared and just wait it out. It'll be over before you know it. And also, of course, Blay, again, thanks for tuning in with us, talking about. I like your shirt, by the way. I didn't mention that.
Metallica, fuck yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Blay's Twitter is official Blay, so go follow him as well. He's a great guy. He knows about Asian CS, but also a lot about CS in general. Hopefully,
And he's got the best name in the business.
Yeah, Blay. Hopefully, we do get to see you at some other events along down the line, right? So, also thanks to everyone in the chat that was playing along with us. We'll be back before the champion stage, the last stage of the major. Remember to post all your questions next time in chat as well. We'll answer as many as we can. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Bye bye.